11:05, so we're going to get started here. First, I just wanted to thank all of you for joining us today. A little bit of background about why we're here today. So this workshop is sort of has multiple origin parts, but one of them was a conversation that I had with Richard Ball. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Nick Hossman. I'm the Schoharie County Ag Development Specialist. I've been in this position since about June. And near that point in my career, I had a conversation with Richard Ball about New York Grown and Certified, and that got me thinking about how this is a great program that more people need to be aware of. In conjunction with that, those of you who are seated at a table, and there is another copy up here, SEEC has put together the Regional Independent Food Processing plan that is on your tables. And one of the ways that we kind of identified a need that could help move that forward was a workshop like this to get producers really engaged in New York Grown and Certified. So once again, thank you all for joining us. There are agendas and multiple handouts in front of you. If you are missing something, want something additional, we have a plethora of additional handouts up here that we'll go through as we move through the program. So just the agenda for those of you who are in person and those of you in Zoom, you're on your own for lunch. But if you're here in person, there will be a lunch. So we'll be starting off with Jessica Brooks and Laura Smalley. And as I say who you are, if you could just kind of acknowledge who you are, who are here from the New York Grown and Certified program with New York State Ag and Markets. That they'll be giving you sort of a general overview of the program. Lisa Coonley from Schoharie County Soil and Water Conservation District will be here to talk about the Agricultural Environmental Management Program, which is a component of New York Grown and Certified. We have Bob Muller from Sun Mountain Apiary, who will be, he's a New York Grown and Certified participant and sort of going over some of the benefits that he's and experiences that he's had as a New York Grown and Certified participant. Then, of course, we will break for lunch. And then following lunch, George Spohn, who is also from New York State Ag and Markets. He'll be going over good agricultural practices certifications. Aileen Randolph, who is from the New York Farm Viability Institute, will be going over some of the grant opportunities for New York Grown and Certified producers. And then to close out the program, we'll have Amanda Kerr from MVEDD, the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. Who is tucked away in the back here. She'll be going over some of the incentives and energy opportunities for farmers in particular. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jessica and Laura, and take it away. As for the TV, just hit the space bar.
Well, set up to just
So
roll through. Oh, great. So I'm Laura Smalley. I work with Jessica. So Jessica is the program manager for New York Grown and Certified. She's been there since the start of it in 2016. I just joined the program last March, so I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary. And thank you guys so much for organizing this. Like, it's really, we really appreciate it, getting all the information out there for everybody. As I said, it was launched in 2016. So our program is a little unique. It is actually one of a kind compared to other state sort of certifications. We wanted to help consumers easily identify New York grown product that also adheres to a little bit of a higher level of food safety and environmental stewardship. So sure, your food is safe, but we wanted to give them a little bit more, a little additional standard to look for. It started with just produce, and now we have over 3,000 farms in the program, and we represent over 600,000 acres. From just produce, we now have 20 commodities, which you'll see listed in another slide. But we also have expanded to partnerships with over 15 retail partners. And again, some of them are another slide, but include Tops, Hannaford's favorite, some areas. It's very, I shouldn't say that. It's easy to join. There are just some prerequisites. So you have to grow your food in New York. You have to grow your product in New York, clearly. We mentioned the food safety guidelines. Those are when applicable. So if it's for human consumption, you know, there are different safety guidelines outside of your normal prerequisites. You know, the next slide will show them, but for instance, produce, you do have to be GAP certified to join our program. You need your BQA. That's not a food safety component for beef, but it's, again, that higher level to tell our consumers that we care about where your product is produced, and you should too. And then the third component is that you partner with an environmental stewardship program, which Lisa will talk about with the soil and water departments. Again, the examples of these third parties. So beef, currently BQA is the predominant one that we accept. PQA for pork. GAP certification is a requirement for produce. It's not a state or federal requirement, but again, we're trying to give that higher standard quality. So it is a prerequisite for our program. Sheep and goat is nice GAP. Poultry, for our program, you have to be processed at a 5A processing plant. We know that there are some other guidelines for the state, but for the purposes of New York Grown and Certified, we do want them processed at that processing plant. And then eggs. Eggs are a big one that everybody's talking about right now. If you have less than 3,000 birds, I'm sorry, if you have 3,000 or more birds, they have to be vaccinated for salmonella enteritis. And if you have 3,000 or less, they must be tested, and we ask that they come from an NPIP compliant facility. These are some of the commodities that we talked about. So we started with produce. As you can see now, we're really trying to, a lot of people are doing a lot of really big things in New York. So we really wanted to try and encompass that and get consumers to know, hey, you know what, we're not just the apple producer of the East. You know, we've got all kinds of really interesting things, honey, for instance. And then there are ways you can join the program as well. Like people think, oh, produce is the biggest one, we have to get GAP certified. But we can also, are you producing that product in New York and then selling it to a processor? How can we get you to fall under our marketing umbrella? Because all in all, the program is a marketing program. Some of our participating retailers, we're trying to branch into a few more large ones and some of these smaller ones, you know, local, you know, Taste New York stores are big ones, but like Honest Wheat Food Co-op is a local one. Some of your Schoharie country stores, places where you can find your product and get it shipped easily and fall under the umbrella so that people know that it's New York certified. Why would you join our program? It's marketing. It's free marketing. We will put you on our social media page. We try to do a showcase, like a producer spotlight on our webpage. We try to rotate that frequently. We go to probably 15 to 20 trade shows a year, and we try to bring representation of a lot of our producers in the program to those trade shows. Some of them are national, depending on the size of your production facility. Some of them are local. We try to really get the word out as far as who is in our program. The biggest one is the grant opportunities now. So obviously the marketing was how it started, but now we've got a lot of really fun grant opportunities coming up for people to take advantage of when they're in our program. And then Nourish New York now being a permanent fixture in the state budget, and Farm to School being a permanent program. There are partnerships available with them too. A lot of them look to our program to say, oh, well, that producer's grown and certified, so we know they're adhering to certain food safety guidelines, and they care about the environmental component, so we can pull them for our program, or at least scan for our program. One of our grant opportunities, I keep this one in my presentation. It is no longer, we've closed this one. Applications were due in October. The announcement was supposed to be made in January as far as the grantees. Yeah, so Soil and Water is actually managing this for us, but it's an opportunity. So that environmental component, which I don't want to touch too much on your presentation, they come out and they do an audit on some ways that you can be more sustainable environmentally. This grant is to help you implement some of the suggestions that I think we're going to cover in that presentation. It was up, this round was up to $50,000 per producer. And again, the Soil and Water was managing this. So that's a lot of money, but the reason I keep it in this is because yes, it's closed, but that was our second round. So I assume they're second round. So I assume there'll be more of those to come. The mini grants, these are specifically designed for our producers. I should have flip-flopped the next two slides. This is to get money directly to producers to get the New York Grown and Certified seal on your product. So if you need help building a website, if you need help designing your packaging, if you need help getting more curtains to put the seal on so that people say, oh, I know that seal and it's grown and certified, this is a grant that you can apply for if you're a member of our program. It's up to $10,000 per participant. This is also one that has happened before. This is round 3. So you can apply for it if you have already received it, but it has to be a different project. So we do want to give you money, but we want to expand your product as well.
This can also, I would just, I'm going to interrupt. So round 3 can also be used for digital marketing. A lot of businesses have found that like the geo-targeted marketing that will pop up on somebody's phone with they're in 25 miles of your shop or something like that has been really great. And it's also been used to do things like billboards. I mean, we call it a cooperative marketing grant because it's promoting both of our logos or businesses or projects kind of at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to, we're trying to give you money to get the word out about your business, but also just leave our seal on whatever marketing promotion you do.
Sure.
Is there if you've gotten one grant, is there a waiting period or something before you can apply for a different grant? Okay.
No.
Yay. Oh, I guess that I had this. Sorry about that, guys. Eileen's going to do a little bit more discussion about this particular grant opportunity. So this is a big, big one. This is our infrastructure technology research and development grant, and it's a lot of money. So $5 million over 5 years. Each region is getting $1 million for the infrastructure and technology part, and then there's additional $200,000 ish.
It depends on region. Aileen will.
Yeah, she'll get into the nitty gritty of that. But each farm, there's a lot of money on the table here for you to do any sort of innovative design. I will, again, I'll let you kind of really get into that, but any sort of new modernization projects that you may not have the guts to do without some funding, we want to try and give you that funding. So just some bullets on that. This is a long-term project. We are currently finalizing some details, so I think that it'll be end of year, late this year, that we'll be announcing sort of the more details about that one. Well, apparently I took the slide out about the big one. We just released an RFP for our own marketing sort of campaign. So we're hiring a large firm to do some marketing for New York Grown and Certified in and of itself. So we want them to go out and say, how do we get New York Grown and Certified seal into these retail partnerships, onto these billboards? How do you see it when you're driving down I-90? We want everybody to start seeing this seal so that those consumer market, those little mini grants that we talked about, then get them to point it out in the store when they see it on your product. That RFP we did just launch. We will be finalizing the details of that in June. So expect to see more New York Grown and Certified out there. These are the related ag and market programs. So Nourish New York, as I said, is now. So this was an emergency response. When the pandemic happened, a lot of farms had all these surpluses. How do we get these surpluses to our consumer? Well, let's start infiltrating the food banks with them. So that it began as an emergency response, and now it's a permanent program. So again, any of these farms that have surplus foods, they partner with food banks, and we try to get their product out there. 62 million. I think it's actually the next budget is more than that. We were discussing that, but I can't remember the exact dollar amount. And then farm to school. Obviously, a lot of you are familiar with that. The 30% initiative was just launched. So that's a little bit of an increase for these farm to school programs. Correct me if I'm misstating anything also. So again, a lot of you guys are probably here because you want to partner with a lot of these farm to school programs. So the 30% initiative is now, if these school districts can prove that they're pulling 30% of their school lunches from local product, they obviously get more, they get 25 cents per meal. So a lot of farms, obviously you guys are trying to get into the farm to school. The school districts want you to get in there so that they can get their 30% initiative. New York Grown and Certified is a direct into that program. Again, we are trying to partner with them so that we can help them streamline the process. You know, we want you to adhere to that higher food safety so that the kids are all getting quality food, local product, and we can support our New York farms to get them more into more. I'm really good with words. How do you apply? You can contact myself. You can contact Jessica. Both of our emails are here. We did put some cards in the folders that are out there. Feel free to use either of our personal email addresses if you have any questions. We can either send you an application if you produce. You can be a partner in our program for more than one category. So Bob's here for honey, right? He may also make maple. He may also have chickens. You can join for each of those categories separately and apply for grants through any of those categories. So you don't have to just do your farm for one thing. You can be many different categories. We'll send you as many applications as you can produce or as stuff that you produce. So you'll need that application. You have to have soil and water come out and do your AEM, your environmental sustainability audit. We need that food safety certification. So if you say, I've got some cows and I raise them for beef, well, I have them slaughtered at a USDA processing plant, we still do need that third party food safety. So if it's the BQA, you just call your BQA representative and sign up for, you can do that online. And then the shoot side training is something that you can do through your local. I think we spoke at the Veg Expo and you were talking about how, well, yeah, we have a local one now. So it's a lot easier to do. And then the trademark licensing agreement, everybody gets a little confused on this part. It's not necessarily your trademark. This is our trademark that says, you know, we won't use the seal unless we are compliant with all of the requirements for the program. And we won't use it on if you are an egg producer, but you didn't get certified for your beef yet. This is just saying we'll only use it on our eggs until we get certified for our beef. And then I just have our stuff a little bit so that you can have these are our cell phone numbers and our personal emails. Again, they are on the business cards as well. You can go to our website, certified.newyork.gov.ny.gov. You can sort of peruse all of the different applications that are available. I will be the first to admit that some of our search features are not as ideal as we would like them, and we are working on it. We are working with a company to update our website so that producers are, you know, everybody's on there, you can search for them. If you search by all, it's a lot easier than actually going for what you actually produce. But if you have any issues with that, by all means, contact us. We can point you in the right direction. If anybody has any questions, Jessica? Oh, yes. You may see these, hopefully.
Believe it or not, this is a big selling point.
Hopefully you see some of these, but this is for your, you know, if you go to farmers markets, if you have a little farm stand, if you want to put it on your front yard, that's great. But we also provide you with some of these stickers to put on your packaging to start with. We'll give you 500. After that, you can purchase them, or you can send me an email and I might send you a couple more. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell my boss.
Also, when you join the program, you get sent the digital files of all the logos. So you can, most producers choose to incorporate the seal into the packaging that they already have.
I don't know if you guys ever, I don't want to throw like names out necessarily, but like Argyle Cheese Company, they have our tiny little seal on their tiny little yogurt products, and it's very cute, but not very visible, you know, but the same. That's what, you know, we sent them our digital files and they were able to put that onto their labels of their own. So, but I'll send you even more than one of these if you join for more than one category. Don't tell anybody that either.
And the only other thing I want to add to that and just reiterate is this is completely free. Some of the requirements that you will need may cost you money, but to join our program and to stay in our program is completely free. I know Pride of New York charged $25, I think, on an annual basis. This program is, in fact, a replacement of Pride of New York. So if Pride of New York is on your packaging, that is no longer supported by the state. We're not going to go out and get you in trouble for having it, but it's not, there's no marketing money behind it at this point in time. And the reason for that is that Pride of New York would apply to anything that was produced, and that meant you could have a corporate office in New York City and you could be considered a New York company producing something in New York. So it's going on peanut butter and orange juice, and it got really confusing to the consumer. So this program was bringing it back to the farm.
These New York oranges are delicious. We really wanted, and I guess Jessica, since she was a proponent of, program from day one, obviously, she's the manager, but it's really about the producers in New York. So, that's a big problem for some people, as they say, well, I'm a small producer in New York, I want to get into this program. Well, we want you to as well. We don't need Idaho's stuff. So. Nothing against Idaho, but does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to, we'll be here all day, so feel free to come up.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Can you just share how your progress has been with your social media presence in the marketing? Any big highlights that you've been able to connect?
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We work with our press office very closely on it. That's where we do a lot more of our sort of smaller highlights. I don't know. Obviously the two of us push it, on my personal page. My friends are like, what is that? It's my program. So we are really trying, we are getting there. But that's part of our big marketing campaign, is that we want somebody to really get those clicks out there, get your product out there, get you really shown and known.
So we just did a pilot $150,000 marketing program last August, September into kind of October. And they did a whole landing page. They did a big social media push. There were banner ads. We were on TikTok, Spotify,
Every time I opened Facebook, my New York Grown and Certified pop-up came up. I was very happy.
And, if we had another hour, I could show you the results of that whole campaign. But it was really great because it let us know kind of where our target audience is. And no surprise, it was not on TikTok. So Facebook did really well. Instagram did really well. So now that we have this $1 million for this new RFP for this big statewide campaign, we're not starting from scratch. We can go in with the results that we got through the first pilot and show them, okay, this is what we know about our audience. This is what was effective, and it'll just make us be that much more streamlined. But yeah, we would love for the agency that we're hiring to get into the, really be promoting posts, really get some influencers out there, because they're very effective in the beginning of the campaign. Influencers were used quite a bit to get the word out there. And so, yeah, we like to, when you join the program, we love it and we ask for this in our welcome email. Photos, video, any sort of just paragraph about your farm, your company. So then we can highlight you if it's dairy month or honey month or whatever month it might be that we're kind of celebrating, so we can keep those out there. But we are finally have the staff in our communications department where they're really into this now. So
yeah,
stand by for even more exciting stuff.
We also, part of our grant funding is dedicated to some research as far as consumer surveys and stuff like that, to see where we can get the most social media presence and real marketing presence as well. But, okay, I guess I'll hand it over to, unless it's Nick.
It's around the corner.
I didn't know if he needed to MC or if I'm just.
We have so many people here. I had to sit in the other room. Yeah. So thank you very much. Lisa Coonley from Schoharie County Soil and Water Conservation District is going to tell you a little bit more about ag environmental management.
All right. All right. Lisa Keenley, like he said, and I work for the Schoharie County Soil and Water Conservation District. It's right in Cobleskill. It's across from the fairgrounds, if anybody needs to know where that is. My position there is a nutrient management specialist. I've been there for 22 years. Yeah. So,
Congratulations.
yeah. So, as I was telling one of the other presenters, I took the job on provisional grant funding. So you didn't know if you were going to have a job after that. So 22 years later, still here. So we got it. So right now I work with, so nutrient management planning is really just working with farms to apply nutrients environmentally and economically sound. So that's where I started. But now as New York Grown and Certified has come about and new farms are moving into the county, I'm doing a lot more broad farming, as I like to call it. Not what I grew up doing, but I'm learning a lot. So I do appreciate people like Honey and all that, you know, I'm learning. So we also work with farms to implement best management practices that remediate water quality and soil erosion infractions. So as everybody knows, New York ag is very diverse. We have so many different kinds of farms. And like I said, it's changing all the time here just in Schoharie County. So I know that that's happening all over the place. I grew up on a dairy farm and now we have a person that puts hives on our property, my parents' property, and they're a beef farm now. So we've changed too and grow as it goes. So the buzzword lately is sustainable development. So what do we need to do? We need to look at well-managed agriculture, because local food provides economic growth, provides jobs. Land that's used for farming uses less services, so it's less costly to towns. We provide conservation, habitat, open space, what people enjoy most about even Schoharie County. We've got some tourism because we have open landscape, and of course the quality of life. Even though some mornings when you're farming, it's probably not quality of life because it's like sub-zero. Something happens, but so soil and water conservation districts are under ag and markets, and then we have ag and markets, and then we have the Soil and Water Conservation Committee that oversees the districts. And the Soil and Water Conservation Committee came up with this agriculture and environmental management. And it started way back in 1989. So I like to just say that I at least wasn't there at the beginning. So yeah, I mean, we started with surface water treatment rules and the New York City Watershed Ag Program. And by the year 2000, we had the AIM legislation creates the AIM law for soil and water conservation district, and we still use it today. So it's a basis for a lot of what we do at the district. And there's a district in every county. So if you are not from Schoharie, you won't see me, but you'll see someone else that does this job. So agricultural environmental management is a statewide, locally led voluntary process that helps farms make common sense decisions toward meeting their business objectives while protecting and conserving natural resources. It's totally voluntary. We come out for free. We hang out with you, talk to you, figure out, you know, what your farming operations goals are, and then we go from there. So it was enacted in 2000, and we just in 2008 it included air, energy, and greenhouse gas management. Soil and Water Conservation Committee is a group of 5 voting members. Like I said, every county in the state has one. So the strategy is the mission of the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee is to advance comprehensive natural resource management through the support of local soil and water conservation districts. The SWCC provides districts with the ability to update their and operate their conservation districts. So they kind of have rules and laws that we abide by. They provide technical services and they assist in program delivery including comprehensive natural resource management plans and cooperative conservation. So we work with other agencies, the Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, Cornell, other agencies like Nichols. The whole AIM idea is to protect and enhance the environment and the viability of ag in New York State. So, you know, we have certified planners, which I am. We do trainings, we do outreach, we have awards, we have signs too. Somebody's into it. We use the 5-tier process. We help apply for cost share programs. We just try to coordinate and strategize to help farms do what they need to do on a daily basis. So we are a non-regulatory agency. So I think that makes us very approachable most of the time for farms. We're not there to tell you what to do. I know growing up on a farm, my dad was like, it's great that you think you know what you know, but I'm still going to continue to do what I do. I'm like, okay, just kidding. So the core concepts are AIM. See, these are our signs. AIM is open to all farms. It's incentive-based, it's locally led and delivered. So we work together with other agencies. We prioritize based on natural resource needs, and it's customized. So your plan will not look like anybody else's plan that I work with. And I try to do a trust and relationship building with farmers. I can usually talk most farm talk. I might not be very good with honey, but I can at least kind of I do have some knowledge of it. And hopefully that leads to practice adoption, and that we can then move forward trying to adapt other things on your farm. So each district has to have an actual AIM strategic plan written, and it's every 5 years. So we update our strategic plan by gathering information that we collect through our worksheets that I'll show you in a moment from farms, and it steers our priorities so we can figure out where we should work towards getting funding for. Our last update was actually done during COVID. So we didn't really hang out with anybody, obviously. So it was a lot of my information. So I'm hoping next time that we update it, we can get some more participation of different kinds of farms, and, so that we can look at other things that are going on in the county. So that is kind of an overview of AIM. Now I'll talk to you about the 5-tier approach, because this is where you guys actually probably want to know the most of, because you need at least the tier 2 assessment to get New York Grown and Certified. So the first one is just a questionnaire. It's very, very easy to fill out. So our 5-tier approach it's trying to gather as much information, make a plan, and hopefully you guys will adopt some of the practices that we talk about. And it's really farmer led. Like, I can tell you that you should do X, Y, and Z, but if you know that won't work for your plan or for your farm, then we're going to go with what you know, because I'm not out there every day. I wouldn't know. So the first questionnaire is the AIM Tier 1. So that's one of the ones you need for New York Grown and Certified. Establishes basic information, identifies potential concerns, identifies farmers' interest, and determines what Tier 2 worksheets I need to complete. As I've been doing these with more farms that are not dairy or have animals, I think we need to update this so that it has a little more information for farms that don't have those kind of things. So after that, we move on to the AIM Tier 2. And the core worksheets that we do are those on the left, on your left. And then we have other worksheets that we would do. So what we do is we would come out, and they would look like this. So your lowest concern is going to be a 1 and your highest concern would be a 4. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means that that's an area that the farm could work on to improve what it's doing.
Is that a score that you assess or the farmer assesses?
I assess it.
Okay.
So don't tell anybody, but I don't really use these sheets all that much. I might like look at them and be like, oh, this is the information I need to gather, but I won't sit there and go through because it's pages upon pages and it gets very overwhelming for people. So I'll just be like, oh, what do you do for tillage on your farm? And you'll talk to me and I'll be like, oh, well, I can circle that while you're talking and figure out, you know, what it is for your farm. And then once we have that, then we compile it. So this is obviously just a made up one, but so we take an average, you know, see, this is all ag, but manure management, it was a 3 because when I did that whole worksheet, there's some areas that you could work on. I mean, ideally it'd be nice if you had all 1s, but let's be honest, that doesn't happen because there's always, you know, some sort of improvement that you could make.
Like, there's no way for them to fail it, right?
Right. It is honestly, you know, I go through it with you and I'm like, oh yeah, there's some things that you could work on. Is there something that you would like us to help you with? And people can be like, yeah, sure. Or no, I don't want to do that again. I'll be like, okay, that's fine too. Like there's no pressure. Or you could come back 3 years later and say, hey, remember that one time I met with you and I need a watering system for my animals? I'd like to do that now. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So there's no failing, I promise. Everybody gets a good grade. So everybody. So, but our goal is once you finish the tier 1 and tier 2, you can then do your New York Grown and Certified application and you can be done with us. But our goal would be that you would use those 2 as a building block to actually develop a plan that we could work with you to help, you know, implement something that if you'd like. Yeah.
My question is, so it doesn't matter what you score, as long as you do to tier 2, we can file for, or file for you guys to be Grown and Certified, right?
Yeah.
With the theory that knowledge is power
It's
and
coming.
everybody who finds out that you could do something to make their farm last that next generation so it doesn't wash away, might go ahead and do that. You know?
Right.
As long as doesn't matter where I score,
That's correct.
as long as I did it.
That's
Because-
I
correct.
apply.
They don't even see the part that I score.
We don't. We got a cover sheet that just says yes or no. It's completely confidential.
That they did or didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So the conservation planner would have to circle, yes, they completed it on this date. And here's their AIM number, because everybody gets an AIM number when they come to the office to do this kind of stuff. So you would have an AIM number, your name would be on it, you'd have to sign it, I would sign it with a circle. And they'll be like, okay,
I
done.
see that sheet, I say, good to
Check.
go. Yep, exactly.
So, but what we hope is that you'll actually, like she said, you know, start planning to maybe fix something. So, and 3A plans are what we could use to help maybe get you some funding. So 3A is just call it the small plan. There's still a lot of work that goes into it, but it's usually just on one priority issue. So say you had, I don't know, had a stream. Right. I know. Like if you had a beef farm and you had some manure runoff, then we could do a 3A plan on that area that said, well, we're going to put in some fencing and maybe a watering system and get them out on pasture and move them around more. And then a 3B is comprehensive nutrient management planning, which includes soil sampling and crop rotations. And like if you're a vegetable farm, it would be much more in depth because it would talk about fertilizer and all those intricate parts of how it is. And then a whole farm plan includes like wildlife areas and forest areas. And that's very in depth. I don't have very many people that do that one. So when we do these plans, everything is planned and implemented as a system. So you would be doing one of those systems in order to have the plans. And because many farms tend to only want to do like one practice, like, oh, I just need fence like around here and I'm good. But really we need to do a whole system of prescribed grazing where you're going to move them around. I just don't want to fence a little spot for 20 cows to sit in for day after day, because then we're going to end up with more of a problem. So our list of best management practices systems are here. Some might overlap. You know, you might soil health system might overlap with irrigation water management and access control or erosion control system. So farmstead facility plans, this is just, again, this is very heavy ag or dairy, I should say. So like here we had a waste storage and transfer. Well, it has more than one standard that goes with it. Silage leachate. Here's a barnyard, a muddy barnyard. That's not a muddy barnyard anymore. So this is one I thought more, most plans will include something along these lines: nutrient management planning and soil conservation, looking at crop rotations, soil testing, fertilizer, and everybody's plans, like I said, it's going to be different. You know, you might only have 2 fields where you would have to do it, or you might have 60 fields. And there's no right or wrong, because plans are not meant to be static. You know, I don't make them and then you put them on your shelf and you're like, oh, that's good, we're done. It's ever changing, just like your business changes all the time. So it's just one of those, once you get the plan done, it doesn't mean that we're done if you don't want to be. So yeah, so here's another, you know, system approach where we're using best management practices, and they're implemented using natural resource conservation standards. They are usually designed by an engineer, and if they're implemented, they have to actually be signed off on by an engineer. So, and we want to make sure that all systems, so we use the system approach really to make sure that we don't create another problem downstream or downfield from where we are. We know we don't put in a diversion ditch at the top of your field to make sure your truffle trees don't get inundated with water and then create a problem downstream because it's cutting out the bank because of where we emptied it. So, all right. So then, like I said, as we're planning, we would then just evaluate and make sure that we're doing what the farm wants to do and it's working correctly. So here's some things. So tier 4, I was trying to think of a couple of things that would be good for here. Maybe an erosion control system. That's like I said, that's just a diversion ditch that's keeping water off the crops below it. An ag chemical and handling storage. There's our manure storage. So it's ideal for us to install conservation practice systems that initiate management changes. They follow NRCS standards and specs and use appropriate local, state, and or federal funding. Okay, I did talk about that, sorry. So we'll go right, oops, oh shoot, can I go back?
Yeah, just the backspace.
Okay, so we do have funding opportunities that these are statewide, so it's competitive across all of New York State. They're locally led and sponsored by the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, just like the New York Grown and Certified grant was this past time. A lot of times, well, our grants are funded through Ag and Markets through the EPF, Environmental Protection Fund. But Soil and Water, we have to write the grants. We administer them. We make sure that they follow all their standards and specs, and then we close them out to make sure that everything was used properly. So AIM is the basis to actually participate in any of our cost share funding. So we have an AIM-based program that provides technical service. Right now I have AIM-based funding for soil sampling. So if you needed to soil sample fields, just even to get a baseline of what it is, you could come to the Soil and Water office and talk to me about that. Then we have Ag Non-Point Source, which is supposedly coming out. The RFPs are coming out probably next month. That's for water quality. You know, if you've got a barnyard problem, if you've got animals crossing a stream, if you need to add fencing for a prescribed grazing managed system or watering system, that would fall under that. The newer one is climate resiliency farming, which is also like flood attenuation. There's your battery's running low. That's fine. So that one is actually getting a lot more funding coming up. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Here. I'm gonna scoot you forward just a little bit.
Okay.
My apologies. I definitely should have done this beforehand.
It's fine. Nobody cares, right? That's good. Climate resiliency farming, there's 3 different tracks for that. Source water buffer program, and then we do get other state aid to districts that helps administer some other programs that we have. The Soil and Water kind of acts as a liaison to a lot of different programs and can kind of match you up to who you need to talk to. So, you know, feel free to call the office or stop in. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So the AIM-based program, like I said, it's non-competitive. So if you come into the office and you need help with some technical assistance or those soil samples, you can talk to me. That's Greg Albrecht. He's actually the New York State AIM-based coordinator. So he's the oversees everybody. So if you don't know who you need to talk to or want some more information because you couldn't get a hold of somebody at your own district, you can reach out to him. Ag Non-Point, that's the one I was talking about. That's for addressing water quality resource concerns. So they've awarded $240 million over 28 rounds. And then approximately 13 million budgeted for this next year. Like I said, the proposals are supposed to be out. So, and you still have to cost share that part, but you know, if you've got a $50,000 project and you only have to put in 12.5%, that's pretty nice chunk of change that you don't have to put in. So then we have the CRF, which, like I said, it's got 3 tracks. We've had good luck in Schoharie getting track 2 and track 3 funded, and it has grown exponentially in funding amounts. So I was thinking it was like in the 1 million in round 1 that they were across the state, and now we're up to 15 million. So, and that's 80% cost share from the state. So again, that's only 20% that the farm has to put in to get some practices implemented. We don't do a lot of source water buffer program here in Schoharie. A lot of it's picked up through the New York watershed down in the southern part of the county. And then state aid to districts. We use our funds. We have like a mini grant program. We do some other things with some of the funds that we get into the county, but it varies. Each county uses their state aid differently. So you'd have to ask what kind of programs people have. All right, and then you evaluate. So I believe it's every 3 years that you would have to then redo your tier 2 assessment. A lot of times stuff doesn't really change much, but it's just you know, just a redo just to make sure that you didn't add 3,000 chickens and not telling you. So when I'll be like, oh, when you go out there, I mean, I've worked on, so I work with a lot of the large dairies here, and I've gone out before, you know, I haven't been out there in a couple months. You go out and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. It's like a 300 cow heifer barn that you put up, but you didn't tell me, or, you know, like, oh, okay. But, and that helps us evaluate our program too, to make sure that we're still meeting everybody's needs in the county. So, and see, you can get these fancy award signs that you can put up on the farm. We still have them in the office. You're welcome to them. So through our tiers so far, 11,000 tier 1 inventories, you know, 7,000 tier 2s, tons of plans, assessments, our BMP systems are really getting implemented lately with all the extra money that the EPF is handing to us, and then our watersheds have improved. I know even like the Chesapeake Bay watershed, we have a little tiny bit in Schoharie County, but people, the Chesapeake Bay uses us as a model for New York State is like the model state of, hey, they know what they're doing. So everybody should do that. So other uses for AIM, like I said, we use it a lot of times to try to help other agencies implement their plans. So, and then why does it work? 3 decades of development, umbrella program. We try to coordinate with other partners. It's design and build, maintain trusting relations and collaboration. Since you guys are part of the solutions, we hope that helps you realize that the practices that we're offering would be beneficial to your farm. It's locally led, like I said, trying to do our strategic plan. All the 58 districts do it. It's science-based and it's adaptable. We can change as we go forward. So anyways, so that ends my presentation. And that's obviously not me because I'm not Greg, but I'm Lisa at the Schoharie Soil and Water Conservation District. There's only 3 of us, so chances are it's easy to get a hold of someone in the office. So, but like I said, if you're from a different county, just call up your soil and water office and they can help you with it. But so that ends my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
If you did a program with NCRS, I got a tunnel grant.
Yep.
Does that mean I got an AIM yet? We did a lot of layout paperwork.
Not necessarily.
I email them quick, and usually Tom doesn't get back to me for about a week. So.
Not necessarily. Or is that Tom Bielli?
Yeah.
Okay. I would probably ask Joe at Sloan Water.
He's probably watching. So. They know I'm going to be stopping on the way home.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
So, like I said, but it won't be hard because if you've already worked with them, I mean, it's pretty easy, quick and.
It wasn't a shot in the arm. There was no pain to do what Tom asked.
Right.
I mean, I have questions on some of the stuff why we didn't do more, but it's just me. So.
Well, and you can always do more, that's what I mean, we run a small mini grant program at the office, and I try to get people to do more, but I think sometimes it's overwhelming to some people, and other times people are like, oh, I wish I could do blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, well, we can just do it in stages. So I try to make sure that people understand that I also, like, if I write you a plan, I'm not telling you have to put in, $1 million worth of stuff that I have recommended, but we could work towards it. So
Sent out an email when you mentioned it, or they'd seen it. So
there you go.
you did or you didn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Usually our NRCS doesn't necessarily do an AIM tier 1 and tier 2. Usually they'll be like, hey, we have somebody, could you,
You do it.
yeah, can you do it? So, but, all right, anything else?
The only thing I just wanted to say anecdotally, what I've heard from farms that have gone through this is when Mott's Applesauce wanted to join the program, they had 140 apple farms that needed to join Grown and Certified and go through the AIM process. And they said, no way, not doing it. I don't want the government on my property. Forget it. And then they were convinced over time that this would be a good thing. And every single one of them actually reached out to us, reached out to Soil and Water and said, that was so educational. I learned so much about my farm. You know, I thought I knew everything, but it really is empowering the farmer to just have the information to make decisions that are only going to help them. So, I mean, I think it's been a really, I've never heard anyone say, well, that was terrible.
I try to make it as painless as possible, honestly.
And how long do they normally last? I mean, when you, like, it's a couple hours.
It's a
depending on
couple
the-
hours. It depends on how chatty I get. Sometimes I'm
How much you like the farm?
right. Sometimes it's, I mean, it's fun to talk to somebody that's doing a crop that I don't know much about, because I'm like, okay, well, you need to tell me everything you know because I don't know about it. So like the vegetable farm in Gallupville, I mean, he's like doing a double cropping, and I didn't know that you couldn't follow brassicas or, you know, like the whole, like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just used to corn silage and hay, and that's all I know. So yeah, a couple hours.
Well, I think that kind of goes with what you and I were talking about on the ag, like the veggie growers. I'm from New York, I'm from the state of New York, and I'm here to help. I've been on both sides of it through emergency services and now on this. And sometimes, yeah, it is painful. And God, you might as well cut my arm off. But what I've experienced so far, it hasn't been. I think it's for a guy who's been around ag now, owning his own veggie farm, there's not enough. You know, I said this at Farm Bureau last Thursday. I said, you don't come to us enough and tell us what you have available. Same thing here. I don't think you're not coming to us enough.
It's
You know, to give us,
right.
like, what can you help us with? You know, it's always, we have to reach out and go search and find. You know, you and I said the rabbit holes of grants. So we got talking about, you know, with the infrastructure grant, the $5 million one. It's all there. Just people have to pony up and take the time to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the glory of these workshops, like, where you organize something like this to get that information out there. And that's something for us to take into consideration with our marketing campaign, make sure that it's on front of.
This workshop
get
out
some
there would
money.
have been excellent.
Yeah.
You guys touching on this out there at the veggie conference?
We'll be pushing next year.
Are you telling you I have to present there?
It is.
Absolutely.
It is hard as, like, we have 3 people in our office. So it's hard.
And everyone does. Every soil
Right.
water has about 3 or 4.
Right. And this isn't all I do. So like right now it's heavy ag assessments because it's tax season. So everybody's like, oh, I need it. Which I get a lot of AIM participation because, oh, you're a farm? Well, let's do the AIM tier 1 and see what you need, that kind of thing. But it is hard to get it out there. And so.
Some will accept it. Some won't.
Right. I've been on that end before. Yeah. Yeah.
A quick question. Thank you. And I just want to say I really appreciate your farm-centered approach to all of this, and that it's not butter across. My question is kind of based on, it's been 30 years of development. You had a couple of slides that kind of showcase some of those planning documentation. Can you share some of maybe the updates? Are there any adaptations with the technology as you're working with the growing age gap and generational differences of farms? Do you see newer farmers being more receptive to the process? Do you see, as we just talked about the marketing at a state level, more of a push for marketing to try to get farms more, or get your department more exposure? Can you just touch on that?
Trying to I think.
I mean, if I can,
Yeah. go
from
ahead.
my standpoint, I do see a lot more, the younger generation being a lot more interested in this stuff and how to implement some of these things, because sustainability is such a hot spot now, as it should be, you know, and resiliency and continuing to grow. And a lot of the farming community, the younger farming community, is like, there are more educational programs out there now too. So a lot of people are going to school to learn how to be better at farming. And so I do find that there is more interest.
Yeah, I would.
And then it kind of translates over into the, you know, like you said, your dad was like,
Yeah.
you think, you know, which is very true. Very, very true. They know a lot more than a lot of us, even going to school. But I would say there is more interest from my standpoint when I talk to people.
Okay, is there like any type of succession planning or involvement that you have with like the FFA, starting at even a high school level?
I would say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I actually find that from the older generation of like these big farmers, like they were talking to me about, he's like, oh, I'm retired now. And I said, well, that's fantastic that you're able to retire. He's like, it's all about planning and like preparing your next generation. So there are certainly more, there's more at their fingertips to draw from, if you know where to look, unfortunately, I guess.
I mean, there are some that I work with that would never hand over the reins, even if they're 85 and, you know, can't walk anymore. But then there's also ones that are trying to make sure that that farm is viable for their kids that are 12 and 15, you know, to move on.
And how to make it sustain, like Commissioner Ball, for instance, his son, you know, they're trying to educate people and get programs out there so that it continues to be generational. If that's answering your question. I don't know if we're getting off topic, but they want to try and make it so that it's not an 85-year-old guy who can't do it anymore and doesn't want to hand over the reins because nobody else knows how to do it right. I think a lot more people are a lot more interested in making it, you know, the farm's food, so they really understand that.
I do know in Schoharie school, they had to get another ag teacher because there's so many kids that are taking those classes, at least to begin with. And then I'm a certified, I'm a certified crop advisor, and they're trying to bring that to the FFA as well, so that kids, you know, they can be a certified crop advisor, which can work in the ag industry and, you know, kind of hopefully help.
Cornell just come out with a program too for ag.
There's tons. I mean,
they're trying to get the people to be more advised about the careers that are out in the ag industry. I think it was Cornell.
So, yeah. And we have, like I said, we have tons of new farmers. I just had a guy call yesterday. Bought 100 acres in Jefferson, and he's like, what should I do with it? And I'm like, I don't know. So like that kind of thing, or they'll call for an ag exemption and they'll say, well, what kind of programs do you have? What can I do to improve what I have? So I think we're trying to get that out there more. Like I said, with an office of 3, and I'm the only ag person in the office, it makes it tough. I'm gonna start having them call Nick too.
I'll just make them call you.
It goes around. But even people don't know that there's the Farm Service Agency and Schoharie, that we're not co-located anymore. And sometimes those programs you need to go there for, and then you need to come to Cobuskill for ours. So it's tough to make sure that everybody knows all the programs and where they should be and how they can, you know, coordinate to make a sustainable farm. So we're trying, I think.
I have a question for you, Lisa.
Yeah.
You touched on it a little bit with the person in Jefferson. When someone is a new farmer, at what point is it appropriate for them to be thinking about especially if they're sort of starting out small scale? I don't think you want to go to everybody's backyard who's doing as a hobby, flocking chickens or something.
Right. I probably won't show up for 10 chickens. 3,000 though, I would definitely. Even though I don't know much about chicken poop, but I can handle it. I would say, you know, once you're once you're really trying to do your ag assessment, getting your tax exemption, by that point, you're in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that, you're not just doing, and it's not that you have to do that as your full-time job, but you're in it because you're like, okay, I'm going to take the time to make a Schedule F and go through that whole business plan and know where I'm moving forward. I'm not so good at, like I said to, I was like, I own 0.75 acres because I don't want 100 because I wouldn't know what to do with it. So once you are to that point where you know, hey, I have 100 acres and 50 of them I'm going to rent to so-and-so to crop, and then I'm going to put honey or beehives on the other part, and I'm going to start, that's where I would probably be most helpful doing AIM.
Nick, to go off of what you said, and the answer, I got my answer. I have an AIM. I did tier 1. I
Okay.
closed on our property August 5th, 2000. They did my assessment on the 19th.
Okay.
So I went right down because it was a working veggie farm that the guy had for 40 years.
Right.
I know he had not done anything for 30,
Right.
you know, so it was, all right, how do we go up, you, the young guy, at the time I was 38, let's spin this forward and get, you know, I remember there was grants for building ponds. That's gone now.
Right.
And that's, who do I go down that, you know, when it comes to lobby day to push on that? Because we need that again, not just for the water part, but fire service. I'm miles away from any water source. You know,
Yeah.
I have a pond, but we couldn't put out a campfire. You know, if my barn went,
It's gone.
Tell them, just let it go.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's no saving. But to go what you said, yeah, right away. As soon as they're on board, they're gonna do something and want to cater to it. And that's when I went down and I said, hey, what do you do? What can you do for me?
Right.
You know, and it started that spiral. And now he says, yes, let's do your tier 3, do your tier 2, and let's get started. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow.
Perfect.
So I mean, that's what it's got to. The only way to get it done is if you're gonna go.
Right. And we kind of, I mean, the farm's got to have buy-in to it. Like I don't want to shove it down your throat because it's no fun. So, you know, if you're into it and you're like, yes, I want to make some changes, or I at least want to start doing New York Grown and Certified, then I know that you're being serious and you want to really do it.
So I guess that's kind of the answer. Like, what do you want to do with your property? Like, if he called
Right.
you and said, what can I do with this? You can say, you can do whatever you want with it, but
What do you want?
what do
Well,
you
that's
want
what
to
I had
invest into it?
Right.
you
And
know?
Well, I have a neighbor with 20 acres. He hasn't done anything with it since he's owned it for 8. He come to me, they're a customer of ours. They buy stuff for me. He goes, can you do something with my land? I said, what do you want to do with it? He goes,
I don't know, whatever you want.
help me pay my taxes. I'm like, let's grow pumpkins.
There you go.
Okay. It's not a hard one,
Right.
but it's labor intensive at the end, but he's on board with it. So
Right.
now it's, all right, this year, let's go and cut it out and grind it in, and, you know, let's put a cover crop on it and give it a year to get it back, and then next year we'll grow pumpkins.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
And then he can apply for the ag exemption because now he's making money off of that. And
Right.
He can come and do it.
he can get his own number.
I know.
That's right. So, all right. Good? Okay.
Thanks, Lisa. And so now to wrap up the first half of our program, we're going to have Bob Muller from Sun Mountain Apiary talk about some of his experiences as a New York Road and Certified participant.
Being the man between the lunch and the.
Well, I figured talking about honey would get people interested in eating.
So where do I get here to my? Sure.
It doesn't seem to be working.
Oh,
Nope.
nope.
What's his name, Lisa?
Nope, there it goes. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, again, I'm Bob Muller. I own Sun Mountain Apiary, and just to clear confusion, a lot of people don't know what an apiary is. If you think in the terms of maple, if you have a whole bunch of maple trees, they usually refer to that as a sugar bush, right? So a group of hives together is called an apiary. Only difference between that and a sugar bush is we have that bear fence. So, yeah, where you're at with that. So, which you wouldn't think right around in this area, but you do. Oh, there we go. So we have our apiary and our honey store is off Route 146 out in Gallup to Delanson address, which is actually Schenectady County, but we're in Schoharie County in the town of Wright. We are an inspected apiary. That is a voluntary inspection here in New York State at this point, with the exception unless you sell bees. So we were being inspected prior to applying for the New York Grown and Certified, but it is a requirement once you are grown and certified. You do have to have that annual inspection there. We became a certified honey producer in July of 2020. I applied in the spring. And then in 2021, kind of when COVID was hitting, there was a grant available. It was by chance that I happened to see it, applied for, started the process in 2020 and received that grant in 2021 for a store. I don't have a great shot of it here of the store. These are the folks, actually, the folks from Oneida County would recognize all these people up here because this is the Oneida County Cooperative Extension Group, if you will. We started with just a little kiosk out by the road, and we used an existing building to create the honey store with. So there's another shot of that a little later, but it made a phenomenal difference to us. I'll get into that a little bit. I would certainly defer to Jessica and Laura in terms of the process. You have to remember this a few years ago. This is just my experience on the honey side, but it was pretty easy, actually. There is an inspection for the apiary. You're going to have some sort of an inspection relative to the kind of produce or product or whatever it is that you're doing. In our particular case, there are New York State bee inspectors, if you will. They come and basically they're looking for disease, and I think it's a great service. I want to be confident that the bees are as healthy as I think they are. You have the application process that you're going to go through, and that would include, for in my particular case, it was the GAP certification on that. You have materials to download and read. There is a test that you have to take, and you submit back. And if everything is in order, you pass the test and so forth, which is relatively easy because you have all the resources right there that you can use for that. You receive your award and the various support materials come through. And that's what the actual certification certificate looks like. I think of this no different than when you go into a restaurant and they show they received a A+ health certification. I have this pretty prominently displayed in our store. I want people to know that we are certified and what this represents in there. So just a couple of tips going through, again, this is through our eyes and so forth here. I get rather animated now. I want to give you a black eye. Let's keep moving over here. So if you notice that. So I really suggest saving all of your documents. And this is from experience. The test is hard copy, at least it was back then, and you mail it in. Normally, I'm pretty anal about that stuff and save copies of everything I did. And I figure it's a test. Okay, I send it in, and get pass or not. Guess what? When you apply for the grant, you have to have a copy of the test. So you don't have the test. So what do I have to do? I have to retake the test in order to have the test to submit to get the grant. So bottom line, save all of your, make sure you have a copy of your application. Make sure you have a copy of your test that you took or any of the stuff that you might do with Lisa or whatever your groups and so forth. Save those kinds of things, as well as your contacts. By that, the people that you're working with. Everybody, I think it was pointed out, they're there to help. So just reach out. They've been great in that aspect. You'll be getting a set of graphic files, and it's those graphics that I end up using all the time. I mean, this is when I took this off our door, little door sign, but it gives you those graphics to be able to put on all your various pieces. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. You do, this is some of my own editorializing on this. I do think it's important that you adhere to the guidelines that you just committed to and that you signed up for. The brand that they're trying to establish or that you're taking part in here is only as good as what the people you're selling to think it is. And if you don't have a good product, if you don't represent it well, you're not only diluting what you're doing, but you're diluting it for everybody else that's involved in the program. And so, I mean, there's bound to be a couple of bad eggs as you go along, but I think it's incumbent on all of us to get a handle on that. So what are the benefits of being certified on this? First of all is you do get a bunch of branding materials that come through. That would be this lovely sign. You get the, there's a bunch of stickers here that you get the roll. Laura had the whole roll. I just have a few. So those kinds of things. I mentioned the graphic files and so forth. Visibility is everything. You can have all the certifications. If nobody knows about it, it's not doing anyone any good. But there's the New York Grown and Certified website. I just signed up to be listed in Pure Catskill. It's a little farther south. And because of the fact I'm New York Grown and Certified, I didn't even realize they do a special call out on that. So you have all these other places. I'm a little more prominent on there because I'm New York Grown and Certified. I'm not paying anything extra for it and so forth. But they highlighted that. That does nothing but good for me in terms of positioning me, right, a little more visible on that page versus anyone else. There are marketing updates that you'll be receiving in the mail and so forth. That comes through typically through New York Ag and Markets, and in grant opportunities, which I'll talk about here in a second as well. If I had to sum it up, what the most important things are, though, it's right here. And this is how it affects the bottom line as far as, because that's really what we're all coming down to, right? That this is all great, but how is it affecting my bottom line and making sure that as a business, I'm also going to be making money. If you remember the little kiosk where I had that for years. When COVID hit, it was unbelievable. I mean, COVID was horrible, but if you were selling local product, that was the time to be doing it. All of a sudden, the number, I mean, I'm restocking it on a daily basis. And so all of a sudden, people wanted to know where the product is coming from. You have something here stating right on it that this is New York Grown and Certified. They know where it's coming, and not to editorialize on honey and so forth, but if you're buying from a big box store, chances are that's not even United States honey. And if it's coming from overseas, 75% of that's adulterated. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's not high fructose corn syrup or sugar syrups and all those other kinds of things. And the same thing happens in the maple market and so on before. So what we're doing is we're saying we're local. This is a quality product. This is something that you can trust. The big thing is it differentiates you from your competition. I have customers that I can count on seeing on my store that are driving an hour every single month. I'm going to see them there, pick up, and they're coming. They're coming from East Greenbush. They're coming from Saratoga, and there are a lot of places that you can buy honey. And there's some really good beekeepers in those areas. I know them. I'm not going to tell them otherwise, but they will drive because they will say, we trust this honey and we really like it and we trust what you're doing. When you're saying it's this, we trust that. And what that does is it removes me from a lot of that commodity pricing. And I'll give you just a really simple example. Every once in a while, we don't do it too often, but depending on anybody else that jars anything, if you know, jar costs this past couple of years just went absolutely nuts. And so it's like, can you find it? And secondly, can you even afford it when, a jar, all of a sudden the jar is costing $7. I mean, it just drives your pricing nuts. So when we wholesale, you sell a 60-pound bucket And typically if you go on, and if we're going to do that, we can just list it on Craigslist or whatever. And if you go on there, typically you'll see a 60-pound bucket of honey might go for, somewhere in the neighborhood of $175, $180. And I talked to another friend who is a honey producer as well. And I was trying to get a feel for what to list it for. And frankly, there's no money at that price point. And they were the ones that remind Bob, you went through that New York Grown and Certified thing, didn't you? Highlight that. I think people will pay more for that. I list mine at $240. I sold out, and I will every single time I do it. While there are ads on there at the exact same time as close for a third less, and yet they're willing to pay for that kind of quality because I'm putting on there that I run 2 ads, one for the store. I'll use Craigslist, and I'll go into that in a minute, as well as if I'm wholesaling, that's a separate ad. But I am going to highlight that this is coming from a New York State inspected apiary, and we're New York Grown and Certified. And I just a little bit of a blurb in there, and I'm not really concerned. I'm not charging usury fees or exorbitant pricing or anything like that. It's market pricing, but I'm not concerned what somebody's just trying to send out there. So what's really important here is the fact that everybody makes claims, right? What sets you apart from your competition? And I don't care if you're a dairy producer, you're making cheese, you have goats, you have vegetables or whatever. We all have competition out there. Somebody's doing what you're doing. And I always equate it, if you go and you've decided to build a new house, right? And you ask your builder, is your house that you build energy efficient? What are they always going to say? Yes, right? You go to buy a car, you ask them, is this good on gas? Absolutely yes. I came here in a 3/4 ton pickup that I bought a couple of years ago. We're driving, doing a test drive. My wife asked him, what's the mileage on this? Oh, probably once it's broken in, 21, 22 miles per gallon. In your dreams, absolutely in your dreams. I know better. And point being is everybody is going to say, again, whatever the product is, it's pure, it's better, or whatever. The difference being, somebody's making a claim. I have certification to back that up. And I recommend everybody get what, you've probably heard the term elevator speech. It's that, if you get an elevator with somebody, you have about 30 seconds, right? To tell, when they ask you, what do? How do you narrow that down and boil it all down so you can give them kind of a quick glimpse? So if somebody asks, what's New York Grown and Certified? What do you mean by that? They aren't looking for you to take them to college. They just want a simple explanation. So I use some sort of a variation of this. Well, everyone claims to produce high quality honey. We put our money where our mouth is, and we went through a certification process. We're inspected annually and have to maintain healthy bees and meet higher sanitary standards than others in order to remain certified. That's all they want to know. They want you're safe and that there's a higher standard there. And so I think that elevator speech and that little blurb is important, and we'll get to that in just a second. So how you leveraging this for success in your business is certainly it's again, all of us kind of increase that awareness of the Grown and Certified brand. If they want more information than your elevator speech, have that available, and that might be as simple as the website or something like that. You certainly should have cards or flyers, and I try and use that logo and keep the look all the way across. And I'll just give you a quick example. So this is my card. There's a New York Grown and Certified on here. You're welcome to grab up here. And then we recently got rack cards. You want to keep the same look so you can have the same colors, a little bit more prominent. New York Grown and Certified tells a little bit about it. There's just a little blurb up here why that's important. Again, almost like a elevator speech on the rack card. And try and use that all the way across, if you will. Keeping in mind, and I just need to underscore this again, is all the marketing in the world isn't going to overcome not having good product. you still have to have a product that is high quality and that people are going to want to buy, obviously. But if you have that, this can certainly step you up and give you a great leg up on your competition. So what we do when we got it and how it's made a difference to us is probably everybody here, I'm assuming, is, unless you're somebody like Indian Ladder Farms, where you have a full-time marketing person, this is one more task you take on your shoulder, right? You are your own marketing department. You are the one who has to do the advertising and so forth. So just some ideas for you is if you, once you get certified, I would certainly publicize that certification. If you have a local newspaper, most every town does, they're always looking for some information or articles. I have a couple here. Yep. So the first thing, there's a grant. I'll send them a little press release about the fact that we got a grant to do the store, right? Picture all the folks in there. Hey, we got this grant, and it talks about being New York grown and certified. Did cost other than time to pull something together on that. Here this spring, Nick came out to meet me and see the store and so forth. That's the other article. That one just ran here a couple months ago. Again, it's a chance to put in there New York grown and certified a little bit. It just keeps constantly put it out there. I do a lot of email blasts. We have a place in the store where people can sign up to get on our email list. I don't want to inundate them. I'm not, like some of these retail stores or something like that. We do maybe 12, 15, maybe at the most in the course of the year. Most of those kind of in the fall, particularly picking up around the holiday time. And for us, and again, this is kind of unique to me, is everybody, you start having the dinner parties and so forth. Instead of taking the bottle of wine, maybe reminding them, hey, how about taking a jar of honey or whatever? It's called top of mind advertising, and the idea being you want to remind them that you're here. You can buy vegetables here instead of going over to Wegmans or Price Chopper or whatever to buy them. It's just reminding them. Every single time I do that email blast, I can absolutely count on the sales that week being higher than they were for the previous couple of weeks. So there's always a fine line of how often do I want to send it, so I don't get them turned off too much and go from there. The other thing is promoting your business, whether it be Facebook, Craigslist, again, I list there as well, articles, press releases, public speaking like this. This isn't paid, is it, Nick? And local fundraisers and that sort of thing. And somewhere right now, this is kind of a slow time for us. I always try to sell out before our season starts again. And actually this year we sold out early, but I will be doing a couple of emails. One, just kind of reiterating about the fact, usually because of the fact that I get inspected in the spring, it's a great time. Hey, we just had the inspector here. It's part of our certification process for grown and certified. It's kind of that little opening segue. And I can talk about, hey, this is part of the process to remind them that we are. And the other thing, just people love, this astounds me all the time. They love to know what's going on with whatever it is that you're growing or raising or whatever. And I get more confidence because I will put something in there, the bees are wintering well, or how the drought was really bad where I was this out in our area this past summer. And they really kind of wanted to know what's going on with that and so forth. So that helps. Public speaking, again, every little Lions Club and so forth, they're desperate for speakers. I have a program I do on just the history of beekeeping in the Mohawk Valley, which is, there's a tremendous history. New York State was at one time the top honey producer in the world. And the Mohawk Valley, actually Schoharie County was the second in New York State back around the turn of the century. But anyway, and that's a place anyway, in all these, you can highlight your involvement in the program. So just a few other suggestions with this is you kind of think, hey, I'm really small. I just, have my small maple operation, or I'm doing just a little bit of yogurt. You had mentioned the Argyle cheese. If you remember how she started out, I mean, it was small. And before they start all their other, what the grocery store and all that sort of stuff. But you can always match up with another producer. You're going at a farm show or whatever. If you have a friend that does maple, I do honey. Hey, how about we do this together? We can cover each other with that. I have a couple of restaurants that use our honey. There's a barbecue place in Schenectady. And so what I do is in my store, I have this particular Memphis King's Barbecue uses Sun Mountain honey in all their sweet based barbecue sauces and so forth. And here's a bunch of their cards. Guess what they're doing at their store as well for me. Doesn't cost a cent, and it's helping us both, right? Anything you can do to participate in your community, and that might be, again, speaking to a club, any donations and so forth. Just a couple of things I would suggest. I'm kind of a quid pro quo guy. If you're going to ask me for a donation, I want to at least make sure that you are you going to mention that we're involved, highlighting the name of the farm or something like that. Now it makes a difference. Are we raising money to help a family that just lost everything through a fire, or are we helping the local Kiwanis, or what are we doing here with this? Makes a difference. And one of the things I have learned also is I used to do, here's some honey, here's a gift basket or whatever. I don't do that anymore. I will maybe give some honey, but along with that is a gift certificate. And the reason being is if I give Eric a jar of honey, Eric's going to eat the honey, and I'm probably never going to see Eric again. I'm never even going to know that he got it. If I give him a gift certificate, guess what? To redeem that, I'm going to make it a value to get into my store. If he comes to my store, he's probably going to spend more than that, number one. And secondly, I have enough, I try to keep it compelling that they come in there. Most of my customers, once I get them in the store, 80% chance that they're going to be coming back again. So I want them to come into my store, and I want him as a customer. I'm not just going to give away money.
Do you sell the things besides in your store?
In the fall, my wife does like candles, that sort of thing. It's basically products of the hive, but no, it is a honey store. I took a chance. I mean, thinking with people, it's a one-trick pony, but it's effective. I have it in every size, comb honeys, all that sort of stuff, and then just the lotion bars and so forth. Again, the holiday time obviously is the big time for that sort of thing. Moving along here. Again, just a couple of things real quick is they want confidence. They don't need a college course on what grown and certified means, but you better have that the elevator speech to bring them along there. You could always give them greater elaboration or fill in the blanks for them in your emails, Facebook, all those kinds of things, and use your stickers strategically, unless you want to buy more. And this is kind of unique to me. We go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jars. I can't label them all. So what I do is our larger ones, I always sticker those in the store. I have enough stuff in the store that they certainly know we're New York grown and certified. If I go to, we did a local holiday craft show sort of a thing. Everything I have there is going to be labeled with the grown and certified. So if I'm going out in public, it's going to be there. I'm a little more strategic about it at the store, if you will. The visuals that you do, you want to try and have a consistent look across. And again, there isn't anything that you're going to see coming through on my part, whether it be the rack cards or pass any of those around, or business cards or anything that aren't going to have the New York grown and certified on there. You may even want to take a simple magnetic sign you can take on and off on your vehicle, depending on what you're selling, have product with you. One of the things for the past few years, we've been doing the family farm days, where basically, I think most of the counties around where you can visit various farms and so forth. So you tend to get customers who have been to other your competitors, right? And so you get that kind of the feedback in terms of what they're saying. And a really common thing, and this might be more unique to small producers like honey and maple, is the fact that, well, I used to go to so-and-so, but my wife gets really intimidated by the dog that they have running out to the yard. And by the time we knock on every door of the house, nobody's around. We never can find them. We don't know when they're open. It's fine that you're small, but at least put a small thing. Hey, we'll be here between 9 and 12 on Sunday or Saturday mornings or something like that. How do they find you? The other thing is, I'll just mention, is a big learning thing that we had this past year. Road signs are the one exception. I think the simpler they are, the better. And give you an example. The bottom one there is what I liked as a road sign because I had everything on there that I liked. I had our, it's pure, it's natural, it's raw, our little catch line that honey makes the sweetest gift. We always love that little line on there. We're near grown certified. Had it out there for several years, and everybody would go by and say, geez, I don't know where your sign. I haven't seen your sign. Took that down, put the other one, just this honey store, huge, big arrow. I'll give them all the rest of the stuff once they get in the store. But all of a sudden, I had people that I know are going by there every day. They say, "Oh, I see you have a honey store." And for the first time, we have a number of people who just drive. Oh, we were driving by and saw the sign. The other one you just couldn't read. Keep your road signs really simple. It's made a big, big difference for us. Last thing is we also received a grant. And so in terms of our process on that, there are, and I think somebody's going to talk specifically about the grants here as well, is with this, with the program, you have grants that are exclusive to you. And so back in 2021, I just happened, it was actually in Ag Clips, which is a little email thing that some of you may get. I saw a little blurb about this and said, geez, I'm going to take a shot on this. This is just our experience. It's probably different, and it's going to be different for each of the grants and so forth. But it was about a 4-month approval process. I started about December of the previous year. It was finally awarded in late May of 2022 that we actually got it. It's a little more administratively demanding than the application and so forth, but in the world of grants, it's really easy. Compared, if you've done many grant applications, they can get pretty daunting pretty fast. It wasn't bad. You'll need to have a budget. You need to have your timetable on it and so forth. Our particular, the grant that I went for, it was in response, it was kind of basically a COVID safety sort of grant. You have to be, a little bit creative how you're going to apply into that. And some of it was a little ambiguous. And part of that was the folks that I'm working with. My sense was it was also the fact that it was the first that they were administering this grant. And so an example of that being, it wasn't until the grant was already awarded that I was told, by the way, anything that you spend isn't eligible. So this is during the time of COVID when all of a sudden I'm ordering, I literally the track lighting and so forth, I ordered it 3 times because of the fact that, it's just not available. You saw there's some sliding barn doors and I ordered those over and over. It all worked out fine because of the fact that construction costs were going up so fast that the contractor costs were more than what I had spent on these other things that all of a sudden didn't become eligible that allowed me to still get the same amount. This was not a big grant. Total cost was about $9,000 or so. Existing building where I also do my processing is where we put our store. I did a lot of the work myself. But anyway, it was about $4,500 or about half the cost on that. So you'll get an email once you're in the program called Monthly Harvest that usually lists the grants in there. And my suggestion to you, even if you say to yourself, geez, I'm not really sure whether this would pertain to us, is try. Even if it's not a perfect fit, take a run at it. You never know. And it just may be the thing. And remain positive with it. Work there. Everybody's just is working toward the same end here. So you do need some patience because you're sending the same documents that you've already sent and, kind of some of the usual bureaucracy sort of things. But in the end, it works out. There's another shot of the store to a degree. And any questions anybody has? What's lunch?
A lot of promoting on this.
We didn't pay him either.
I did.
But he's hired.
It is, again, Nick had asked me when he was out and kind of doing the tours of the farm, he's gone to a number of farms and so forth, and have you seen it make a difference? And an emphatic yes, it really has. We literally double in sales. We're small scale. I mean, but go from doing a few thousand to doing $8,000 to $10,000 in a matter of a couple of years. We don't staff the store. This is self-service. I'm usually around, and a lot of customers will look for me and so forth. It's near my shop, and I try and catch them, and when any chance I get to chat up to customers. But it works because I'm not also paying somebody there at a cash register, and we're not directly on a road where it's a little dead end road off of Route 146. We're out on 146, probably be robbed blind because they can come in and out pretty quickly, but it's not been an issue ever.
Would you have left your little kiosk if you didn't have grown certified? Would you have made the next step, or was that the reason?
I was really that's a great question. It was not working because part of the reason being is, and this is unique to honey, does not like to be heated and cooled a lot. It'll granulate. It doesn't hurt it, but it hurts its salability. There are people that want it granulated, but most people want it liquid, right? And so I was trying to I moved the kiosk a little closer to the building where the store is now, put a heat lamp and everything so I could extend the season into October, because that's where it really starts to even get busier. And putting it out every morning and so forth, it was labor intensive. It still didn't work. And you get to a point where you just can't get the heat in there. We were looking at whether, to do an Amish shed, trying to put heat in that, and any number of things. But it just wasn't really sustainable there. I'm not 20 years old also, I don't want to build a whole new thing. This gave me an option to repurpose some space that I had, relatively easy price, and having to spend 10 grand to do it on my own, probably not. I'd have done something, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near as nice or as workable as I am now.
Not a question, but just a comment on your road sign. It's an interesting comment because I do look at a lot of signs, and if I have to turn around and go back or slow down to read it, it's just too cluttered. And I think actually thinking back, I think that's probably what drew me into your place for the first time. Driving by is a big old sign.
Not ambiguous.
Yeah.
The newer one, yeah. It's amazing. The people, they never saw it until you just, same colors and everything, just kept it simple. Just, here it is with an arrow.
Actually,
I appreciate your insight and marketing strategies that you have. Was there any marketing technical assistance that you received through this certification, or was that through other third parties or previous work experience with your strategy for female social media businesses?
Previous experience, I farm out. We have a website. I have that handled for me. There's a local person who does it, and she does a great job. I include her on all my every email blast. She automatically updates it with whatever I'm sending out there, so it's not redundant on my part. And the rest of this is kind of it's like the sign. You kind of learn as you go along. I just did it. Why are people not noticing this? I need to try something different. And the same with I mean, a lot of people, places with a store don't necessarily put a Craigslist ad out, but I list honey, and this is where it's available, right? And so it doesn't cost me anything. I'm cheap too, so you try to keep exploring those kinds of things.
So you had good marketing practices before the cert, and then going through the certification and having that in addition to your marketing strategy, you're able to see that jump in sales exposure.
Yep.
Do you think you would have organically got to the marketing exposure you have now?
No. I think it goes back to those 4 points I mentioned are probably the most different, or they're most important. The fact that with you still have to have something to work. You have to have tools in your toolbox, right? This is a massive tool in your toolbox because it can differentiate me from the competition. So all of a sudden, again, I can charge that 30% more and get away from a commodity price where I'm not doing this just for giggles, right? I don't mean to be mercenary about it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I absolutely love doing it. I love watching the bees and working with them. But at the end of the day, I can't have, this isn't something where this is where all my time is going just to be able to make sure that you get cheap honey, you know? And so having that tool of being able to say, I have, you know, and the inspection is part, so I have the inspection, we have the certification, so those are the tools. And that's how it gives me the fodder for those articles as well, you know, press releases and so forth. That's what separates us from everybody else. So, thank you.
Do you do any beekeeping classes?
I'm sorry?
Do you do any beekeeping classes?
I've spoken to most of the beekeeping clubs around here. I've done both the history thing and we do some other, you know, techniques and so forth. It was kind of just not to go off on too big a tangent, but there's a Valley Beekeepers that meets at the Cooperative Extension in Cobuskill. There's Capital Area Beekeepers, which meets over in East Greenbush, and there's one called Saba, which is probably one of the larger ones, even east of Mississippi, called Southern Adirondacks and so forth. And when COVID, obviously, all these clubs are big, we're all zoomed to death, right? And so they all one by one opened up, starting with Capital Area Beekeepers, and I was their first speaker there. Valley Beekeepers, and just worked out this way, Saba. And I always joke with them, I'm kind of like the Beach Boys tribute band, right? You want to have it compelling enough for people to come, but you don't want to invest too much just in case they don't. And so it worked, and it was kind of like, and it was about halfway. So attendance isn't back at any of them like that used to be, but they are getting people back, and away we go. So, all right.
Okay.
All right, so thank you very much, Bob. The time is upon us. So on that note, I am going to turn it over to George Spohn, who is going to speak to you all about good agricultural practices. Take it away, George.
How we doing? So I get to follow lunch. All right, I'll see if we can. I'll see if I can keep everybody awake. I'm not so sure, but I'm going to do my best. Everybody can hear okay? We're all good. Quick show of hands. How many fresh produce producers? All right, so a couple. The reason I ask is my whole portion is going to apply strictly to fresh product. So when it comes to the GAP auditing, that portion of the Grown and Certified program, we would be doing those food safety audits. So sliding on in here, I wanted to just a real quick overview, touch on the background, introduction to GAP audits, talk about harmonized produce GAP audits, the acceptance criteria for the audits, what you can expect of us when we come on out to the farm, take a look around, and you know, how we would handle ourselves when we're on site.
My first question.
Awesome. You
What's
beat
GAP?
Cody.
What is it?
Oh, sorry.
I've been
Good
doing this 3 years,
agriculture.
I've never heard of it.
Good agricultural practices. So like slide 3 or 4, we'll kind of talk about how it was put together with FDA. But yeah, so it's good handling of product, right? So anything that we're doing to minimize microbial contamination of produce or of any product. How to apply for the audit, and then probably most importantly, how to apply for reimbursement, right? So everybody wants to get the monies out of it. Kind of been a theme with the program today, what kind of monies are out there, how to get your hands onto it, and how to use it to the best of your abilities. So audits are typically going to be driven by that buyer or whoever's looking to purchase your product, bless you, or driven by a program, right? So the Grown and Certified program, prime example. A portion of that is to have a food safety audit, again, speaking from a fresh product perspective. We always encourage that person to reach out, check with your buyer, check with whoever you're supplying to see what type of audit it is that you will need. So there's a variety of different kinds of audits. We do USDA audits. There's Primus, there's Global Gap, SQFs, again, like a huge plethora of audit types that are out there. So definitely reach out to that buyer or who you're selling to. Everything has fairly similar requirements across the board for each of the audit types. So when I kind of start talking about the audit in particular, if you're into a different audit type program, that's fine. Those notes should apply. That I guess guidance should be able to apply across the board on them. So USDA gap audits are the basic audit that we're going to provide. It is very yes/no answer to the questions, right? So we're going to come out, we're going to sit down with you and kind of go through a checklist and assess your food safety plan, which we'll get into in a little bit. Assess how people are handling themselves on site, and kind of go through that whole questionnaire. The produce gaps harmonized food safety audit is a little more intensive. It gets into risk assessments, more documentation, your corrective actions, how you're going to address problems that arise on site, and what you're going to do to manipulate that food safety plan for the future. So it kind of grows with the operation and grows with time. Then the Harmonized Plus, a little bit of a different twist on the Harmonized audit, but it's more of a, I want to say a global GFSI. So a global safety, we'll get to it. That's in a slide. Sorry about that. But it's a GFSI benchmarked audit. So it kind of has more of a recognition worldwide. So that kind of breaks down to 3 types of audits that we perform. So gaps. Everything is based off from the FDA's Guide to Minimizing Microbial Food Safety Hazards. So 1998, FDA put out this publication, kind of in awareness to rising issues that there were with produce not being safe to eat, especially fresh produce. So they put together this guide. There's also specific documents out there to different produce types. There's sprouts, there's leafy greens, tomato protocols. So there's a bunch of different documents that are kind of commodity specific. But overall, what we do is going to be based off from this guide to minimize food safety hazards. So 2001 is when the audit program kind of came into play. So FDA, different state departments of agriculture, academia, industry, everybody kind of got together and said, okay, what are we going to do? We want to address this need out there, or this rising concern that products not safe to eat, fresh products. So they put together the GAP audit program, set up the checklist, pushed it out, and the states, so me working with New York State, we work under cooperative agreement with USDA to be able to go out and perform these audits on site. So the audit itself verifies that participant is doing their best to minimize microbial contamination, right? It's not a guarantee that the product is completely safe to eat. All it says is they're doing the best that they can to provide a good, safe, and wholesome product. Everything that we do is completely voluntary. We are not a regulatory program, so it's all buyer-driven, program-driven. You would come to us and say, "Hey, we need to have this done. We need to have an audit. What can we do?" Then we would go out and do it. So there's a question about FSMA. So 2 completely different animals. The produce safety rule and good agricultural practices audits. 2 completely different items. Produce safety rule is administered through FDA. It's a regulatory activity, so you're required to be in compliance with that, or whatever portion would fit your operation. There's a bunch of different farm sizing questions that come into play and surveys that come into play as far as when you would have to be in compliance with that. From a GAPS audit standpoint, again, it's completely voluntary. So, we aren't going to come out to your farm and say, okay, this is what you need to do. You would come to us and say, we want to be in compliance, come check us. So when this was set up, just like the guidance document with FDA, everything, it covers the entire supply chain, right? So from farm to fork. So we're looking at your waters that you're using on site. We're looking at the grounds that you're growing on. We're looking at surrounding areas. We're looking at, what your neighbor might be doing. You're growing leafy greens and the guy next to you is spreading raw manure on fields. So all that kind of stuff is going to come into play when we come out and assess your operation. So just because somebody's spreading right next to you, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail the audit, right? So we're looking for buffer zones. We're looking to see that you've done whatever you can to minimize that impact, right? And that's with your traditional gaps. As you get into your harmonized gaps, those are all going to be done through risk assessments, right? So you want to know that you realize that the risk is out there, what you're going to do for that, and what means you're taking to mitigate those risks. So this is going to apply from the farm to your packing operation, whether it's a packed in the field or you're bringing it back to a packing house. It can be at the distribution site level. So coming into a warehouse, it could be your storage facility. All those avenues are going to be incorporated into that GAPS audit, as well as traceability. And I wish I had more information on the traceability rule, because that is up and coming. So kind of keep that in the back of your heads too, as you're looking at your food safety plan or food safety audit, or the potential of. So really quick, the audit is broken down into a bunch of different parts, right? And it's a choose your own adventure. So everybody has to do the general questions. From there, if you're just a grower and Grown and Certified is gonna say, you know, we need to, I don't know what your requirement is, the first 2 scopes for Grown and Certified, or
Yeah.
first 2 are definites. That's something that you would also be looking at talking with your buyer about, right? So if you're marketing to, say Wegmans in particular, they're going to require the harmonized GAPS audit. If you're going to supply to, just picking out of the blue, Hannaford, maybe they want to have all 4 scopes. So your farm review, field harvest, or field packing, house packing, and your storage and transportation. So find out from them what you're going to need to be able to satisfy those requirements to market your product. If you're doing it out of goodness of your heart, that's great. So you can choose what's important to you, right? So where you think you might need more work or want a little more guidance on, you would choose those scopes to be audited against. Real quick look at the questionnaire that we would bring on site with us to go through. All of this stuff is available at the USDA website. Like I said, it's kind of a yes or no as you would go through. I'd kind of mark those questions. Our auditor is going to ask those questions when we come on site and go through the audit with you. Quick look at the score sheet, and I want to spend a lot of time on these. So introduction to the GAP audit itself, again, continued. So there are automatic unsatisfactory conditions. So I'll kind of pull all these up here. So to be able to even have us come out, we're going to want to know that you have a food safety plan in place. We want to know that you have somebody that is that has been assigned that overview of the audit program. Without those, we wouldn't even show up. So that's key. That is not something that we can, it's going to sound terrible, but it's not something we can help you with either as far as the food safety plan. So we do push people out generally to their Cornell Cooperative Extension agent to help in that food safety plan writing. Us as a third-party auditor, we need to keep that separation, which is why we don't get involved in the food safety plan writing. We do strongly encourage, though, when you're ready to have your audit, to submit your food safety plan to us, and we'll gladly review it. So we can take a look for any documentation that's missing, kind of let you know where it stands in that aspect. And obviously, there's going to be observations when we come out on site. But as far as the review of the food safety program, that we can do. When we're on site, if we notice any indication of falsification of records or an immediate food safety risk, somebody's spitting on product or picking stuff off the floor, not washing it, running through a wash line again or anything like that, those could all be immediate food safety risks. That would automatically fail the audit. Presence of excessive rodents, insect infestations, again, the observation of an employee jeopardizing the safety of the produce. All of those would be means for an automatic unsatisfactory and terminating the audit. Just because it's terminated doesn't mean it's completely over. You would fail the audit, but you have time to submit corrective actions, and we could then come on out and get you passed after assessing the corrective actions. I was mentioned about the gentleman that did the honey presentation. Having good product, right? So we don't want to just come out and pass you just because you called us to come out and have the audit, right? So there's a standard in place. Once you pass that audit and you have your GAP certification, that should come with a fair amount of weight. Currently, we have 260 or so growers in New York State that are GAP certified through our USDA audit. There are other audits that are available, so it's not just USDA. So when you get looking at the Grown and Certified program, the USDA audit is something that we offer within Department of Agriculture. But again, there's also those Primus audits, those SQF audits, global gaps, other audits that you can get into. So for passing the USDA audit, we do need to have an 80% acceptance criteria. So it's a point-based system. So if I back up a couple of slides, there is all the questions are weighted with a points system. So your traceability, 15 points, kind of come down to your mock recall, 10 points. Everything's going to be weighted a little bit differently. It's usually 5, 10, 15 points or so. So of those available points, you would have to make an 80% passing score in order to be able to pass your audit.
Somebody wanted to see what a food safety plan looks like. Where could they find a sample one?
Good question. So Cornell Cooperative Extension, Produce Safety Alliance, they all have a lot of templates available on their websites. So definitely good resources. There's also links, I believe, on the USDA website to get out to some food safety templates as well. Penn State has a lot of really good ones. But again, coming back to PSA's, Produce Safety Alliance's website, they have a pretty good collaboration of a lot of templates there. Word of caution, don't pull the template and put your name on it and submit it to us. So we tend to see that a fair amount. When we come out, we're using that food safety plan to drive that audit, right? So if it says it in the plan, we expect to see it taking place on site. So we try to follow that through pretty legitimately and make sure that we're doing a thorough job to compare that food safety plan with what's actually taking place on site. All right, so that was traditional USDA GAP GIPS. The produce harmonized GAPs kind of amps it up a little bit, so it's a little more stringent. It was administered by the International Fresh Produce Association. Currently, prior to that, it was United Fresh. Again, 2009, it was a group of industry members, academia, audit owners, kind of collaborated to make an all-inclusive audit. So initially, the goal was to get rid of your SQFs, your Primus, your global gaps, USDA gaps, have one audit source, right, to make it easier for the growers to be able to market their product. Again, all voluntary basis, kind of coming back to that one accepted audit. A lot of times, if you're marketing to Wegmans, if you're marketing to Hannaford, if you're marketing to the green markets in the city, one may be SQF, one may be USDA, one may be global gaps. So you would have to incorporate all three of those audit schemas, right? You'd have to bring auditors in for each of those. It gets highly expensive. So again, this was their goal to make that happen. I'm not sure if it's really come to fruition yet. Most places are accepting the harmonized audit, but again, I think it's still a work in progress. USDA is really trying to push it and really drive that force of one accepted audit. 2018, I asked about the produce safety rule. The harmonized GAP audit encompasses the requirements of the produce safety rule. They are not the same. All right. So like I said, one's regulatory. This is a voluntary item, doing harmonized audits. Inside of that harmonized audit, there are mandatory questions. Those mandatory questions are the requirements of the produce safety rule. I think I have a slide in here that'll kind of show what that looks like inside of the audit standard. But they're marked as a mandatory requirement. If you do not meet that as compliant, or if you don't meet it as compliant, then you're not going to pass the audit. So you would have to set up corrective actions to be able to come into compliance and meet the requirement of that mandatory. Again, it all pulls out of the produce safety rule. All right, so similar to the traditional GAP, the harmonized GAP audit has sections set up into it. You can choose if you're going to do the field operations and harvest or the post-harvest operations. You can do both. Again, reach out to your buyer. Incorporated in each of those sections is going to be your farm review. So going out, taking a look around the farm, your field harvest, field packing. Once you move into that post-harvest, that takes in your packing house operation if it's an indoor pack shed, your storage, your transportation. Each of those scopes, you will be required to do the general questions, and that kind of pulls in the general personnel, hygiene, training. It grabs onto management structure, corrective action procedures, and kind of pulls all that together under a general question scope. There is a logo use. You have to submit separately to USDA to, just like the Grown and Certified, but to use their GAP logoing. I didn't put it on here, but there are 4 or 5 additional scopes, and that's all coming under tomato protocol. So if you're a greenhouse grower, packer, field grown, I think high tunnel's on there, but it's all, those are individual scopes within the harmonized audit, and they apply strictly to the tomato protocol. All right, so sample of what the standard looks like. It's a lot of words, but with that, each requirement has a lot of different facets to it, right? So if you are looking to go the harmonized route, recognize that there are a lot of requirements built within each one of those requirements. Again, it's a pretty intensive audit, a lot of documentation, a lot of moving parts to it. So again, this gives a little example of what that would look like. You guys can see the mandatory column up here towards the center. Any of those requirements that have the bullet mark into it, that is a requirement that you would have to be found in compliance or not applicable to your operation in order to be able to pass that audit. Built within this is going to be documentation types that are needed. So whether those are written policies, records, the next slide has assessments, risk assessments. Kind of pay attention to each of those items that are required on that, and that would have to be incorporated into your food safety plan or food safety program. Those are required documentation points. We would need to see that written down. With the traditional GAP as well as the harmonized, we can't stress enough, like, documentation is everything. So if it's not written down, you're not doing it. So typically everybody's doing their part to provide fresh and wholesome product, right? So they're doing it the safest means possible. They're not purposefully contaminating it. That's what we see when we go out. But if it's not documented that way, we can't give the credits for it. So again, follow through your food safety plan, follow through the requirements of the program. I'll make sure you have all those documentation points met. Again, coming back to that mandatory requirement, and I'm not sure where I went. All right, mandatory requirement. Again, they have to be assessed as compliant or as a not applicable. The report that the auditor will have on site with them, where we're going to assess those as compliance, non-compliance, immediate actions required. So again, coming back to the traditional GAP, that infestation of pests, somebody spitting on products, not having a plan in place, those are all going to be immediate actions required. So that would automatically terminate the audit at that point. So the differences between the traditional GAP, we've kind of been talking a little bit as we go through, but between the traditional GAP and the harmonized GAP, definitely a lot more questions, increased documentation, record keeping. People don't have time for it, especially that's during the growing season, right? So everybody's kind of like slammed with that growing product, harvesting product. To make the audit successful, you do have to make sure that everything is being documented, all your records are being kept. With the harmonized audit, there is the mission statement. So, you know, boasting about your operation, what are you going to do, what's your drive, looking at the risk assessments, assessing each of those risk assessments in entirety. Again, they have a lot of different segments to them. The harmonized audit incorporates more corrective action procedures. So anytime you are found to not be in compliance, you would have to address that non-compliance with a corrective action. In order to be successful for your next year's audit, that has to be addressed. Otherwise, you wouldn't be found as meeting the compliance with the audit. Recall programs and procedures. Again, it's a documentation. Can't stress enough. It's got to be written down. You have to have the whole policy procedure in place and exactly how that's going to take place. The risk assessments, kind of wanted to hit on that just a little bit. It's not simply saying, okay, the neighbor next door is spreading manure next to my leafy greens. It's identifying all hazards, right? All chemical, physical, biologicals, analyzing what you identified, what that hazard is going to be, what kind of control measures are in place. Did you build a berm? Is there a hedge barrier? What kind of a grassy barrier might there be as far as like a width wise? That's your minimum that you feel is sufficient. Again, working with Cornell, or I'm not sure how much soil and water gets into that. They left. Okay. But they might be able to provide assistance for that as well. We're not the scientists onto it. We want to see that you have an action in place. So that's our role again as the auditor. Of course, monitoring for that hazard, verifying that the mitigation plan that you have in place is a successful one. If it's not successful, then corrective actions, preventative actions, whatever you're going to do to keep that potential for hazard to a minimum. All right, ongoing management by the auditee, right? So as things progress, as new science comes out, our food safety plan has to be kind of a liquid and malleable document with that. So we have to adjust that as new rulings come out. That is an annual review that has to be documented again by the auditee. There's also a self-audit aspect. So those audit documents that were up on the screen, that is all available through USDA, and we strongly encourage you to go out and you grab that document and kind of do like a run through for yourself. You would have a really good idea of where you stand with that audit when we do come around. Looking at any of the prevailing regulations, anything that pertains to your operation. So the produce safety rule is still working through the water requirements. So once that all gets nailed down, that's going to have to be built into your audits as well if you're using water. Building that plan again to incorporate any corrective actions that you took, right? So you found an issue from one year to the next, building those corrective actions into that plan, expanding on your plan to mitigate any of those risks in the future. All right, acceptance criteria for the harmonized gaps. Nothing can be assessed as an IAR. Falsification records again, missing water tests. We actually ran into this on 4 or 5 audits last season. Whether it was I'm not sure what it was. I think a lot of it was people not needing to use the water with having a wetter year or a more moderate year. So we were missing a lot of water tests, and that is an automatic action required. So if you have it in your plan, again, keep up with that, keep up with those water tests. None of the mandatory requirements, again, can be assessed as a non-compliance. So they either need to be a compliant or not applicable. All risk assessments do have to be satisfied in each of the aspects within those risk assessments. And again, stress on the documentation. It all has to be up to date and accurate to your operation. It mentioned about the corrective actions. If we assess the corrective action for your establishment that following year, that would have to be taken care of. It would have to be addressed. If it is something that that you're not going to be able to address, so one of the items for the harmonized audits is that all of your suppliers, if you're a pack house, all of your suppliers have to be audited against the field operations portion of the harmonized audit. As people kind of come on board with an operation, a packing operation, they may not be audited for that season. So you may end up receiving a non-compliance for that. So your corrective action might be to, get letters out to all your growers, or before you sign them on, take action steps to have them receive that audit prior to being able to supply product. Newer operations coming in, maybe that didn't happen for that next new operation, right? So there may be like a consistent year to year where you would assess or be assessed for the same non-compliance, but we do need to see steps that you're doing the best that you can to try to come into compliance with that. The 80% of the questions have to be marked as compliant. They are not point-based questions, so everything has a point value of 1, right? So just like taking a 100-question test, you need to get an 80% or better in order to pass that audit if the remaining criteria are met. USDA is going to post the certificate to the website. You also get mailed a hard copy of that. Generally, the buyers are really driving and looking for that. So if you're, again, supplying to Wegmans or whoever, they may be looking for that certificate in order to keep on their documentation. So what to expect of us when we come out? Depending on the portion of the audit that you're looking to have done, we need to see that portion in operation, right? So we can't come out and do your farm review in the middle of the winter when nothing's growing. Kind of makes sense. We want to be able to see everything taking place on the farm. Same with the packing. We can't do a mock pack, right? So we want to see you in full operation, performing everything as you would on a normal operating day. When we get there, we're going to have an opening meeting, communicate with what the steps of the audit's going to be, right? So I like to ask when they're packing, when they're harvesting, when they're in the field, when the employees are on board, when they're taking breaks, to try to get an idea of when people are going to be around. We're going to want to look at all those documents, right? So all that documentation is not for nothing. We do want to see that while we're on site. Observing the operation and the personnel, again, going to the fields, watching them work, watching them at the packing house, asking questions. So we're going to interview those people too. We want to make sure that you guys have provided the training to the personnel and know that you have a vested interest in it and that they have a vested interest in that food safety. And we do that through that interview process. Taking notes, keeping that checklist, making good documentation on our part. Everything that we write down is critiqued by USDA. So we want to have a pretty well-written report when we submit that in. So if something looks a little bit off, we interview you, we find out what your procedure is. Maybe there's a reason for you doing exactly what you're doing, even though it doesn't look familiar to us. We're going to want to document all of that and send it into USDA. That way they have a good idea of what they're looking at. When everything is said and done, we'll have a closing meeting. We'll discuss what we've seen. We do like to have somebody come with us when we're on site. That way, 2 eyes at once, right? So we can't be accused of making something up. You can address it. You have the opportunity to address it if you see something when we're going around. So example might be, we go out to the fields and somebody's eating lunch under the apple tree, right? So you as a food safety manager should take those steps to say there's designated lunch areas. You should be in that lunch area. That person should be removed from the field and moved out to where they should be taking their lunch, but then also a training that goes along with it. So when you're with us, you have that opportunity to make those changes, and that would go in a report as well. And I wouldn't assess it as a non-compliance because you took those steps. There's always something that happens. It's on audit day when the sheep are out running through the lettuce patch, right? So we understand things happen. It's a farming operation, but it's how you handle that situation. So that food safety plan should be there to guide you through that. And again, that's the documentation for it. We know what you guys would be doing or should be doing in that situation. Again, during the closing meeting, it's a time for you guys to ask questions. What did you see? What should we do? Where are we at? That kind of thing. We can't give you the what you should do's, but we can tell you where you missed the points and why it was in compliance, and then you can adjust yourselves from that. Some of the documents to have on hand are going to be the risk assessments, water tests, all water tests. So from hand washing to drinking to chemical mixing application water to product wash water, table washing water, you name it, across the board. Any water that's used within the operation, we want to see records for. Training records, scouting records, cleaning records, pesticide applicator license records. Again, we want to know that person who's has a potential to impact the food safety quality. We want to know that they're trained and doing what they're supposed to be doing. All right, unannounced reviews. If you're only in operation for 30 days, chances are nobody's going to show up for an unannounced, right? So the longer you're in season, the more times that we're going to be looking to come out and perform that unannounced visit. Again, it's just to verify that it wasn't a one and done, right? So you invite us out to the first audit date, everything should be spot on. We want to make sure that that practice continues after we're gone. So we're going to be looking at records when we come back for the unannounced, making sure that you're keeping up on the records and doing that walk around, right? It's usually a pretty short visit, not much longer than an hour or so. But to go out to the fields, make sure everybody's wearing whatever it is that you indicate in your food safety plan they should be wearing for attire, and following those food safety policies. So how much does it all cost? Well, it's not cheap. So our fees are $132 an hour. That gets dictated through USDA. We don't have any say into it. You will get two bills to make it even worse. So one comes from the state, one comes from the feds. So USDA wants to get their hands into it. Again, they are responsible for the posting. They do the review. Typically, that's a 2-hour review that they charge, between 1 and 2 hours. A lot of times people will ask how long an audit takes. I have no good answer for you. It's all over the board. The harmonized audits on a large operation, if people don't have their records in place and you have to do a lot of searching around, it takes a lot of time to go through the interview process. You could spend a day or two there. If it's a well-run large operation, people are tabbed out in their binders. They have everything in place. You can go into a 1,000-acre farm and be out of there in 6 hours. So, and that's your on-site, that's your walk around, that's your drive time getting there. It really depends on how much work you're doing ahead of time to prepare for that audit and have everything in place.
No coffee stops on that one.
What's that?
No coffee stops at that.
No. No, they watch you.
Is that per hour arrival to leave, or for when you leave your house to you go home?
So that does incorporate travel time and prep time.
For whoever the auditor is.
Exactly.
I'll get lucky to get that guy from Buffalo.
Yeah, no, so on that, we are pretty fortunate with New York. We have a lot of auditors scattered. I say a lot of auditors. There's 8 or 9 of us scattered across the state. So
unlike USDA.
Yeah, USDA you end up paying a fortune for, yeah. So if they have to come in, they're coming out of whatever, Washington, Maryland.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you at?
Montgomery County.
Okay. So I'm Copaskill, so you'll be charged from my residence essentially. If that was something you were looking to do.
I have another question.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know about that. I've never had anybody offer. So it is portal to portal. It can get pretty expensive, but a couple slides hopefully is a little remedy to that. So it's very extremely variable. So I can't really give a good answer to that. The more commodities you tack on, potentially has an impact, right? When we come out, we don't necessarily need to see every commodity that you have listed being harvested or packed at that time. We try to lump things together that are handled in a similar fashion, packed in a similar fashion. Typically, those are going to be like, crop rotation items in there too. So we might try to hit something on an unannounced review. So we try to move it around a little bit. Those unannounced reviews, we also charge for those. Yeah. That, like I said, they're about an hour on site or so. So what we try to do is we'll try to do a couple of unannounced in a day. They're in a similar location, or we'll incorporate it with other work, right? So we only get hit for one way. So you guys make it uncomfy for me. So applying for the audit, again, you said you had to have the food safety program, have a person designated. There's resources out there. The USDA website has a ton of resources for helping you through that food safety plan setup. And again, Produce Safety Alliance as well. Local Cornell Extension offices, they typically are excellent resources. A lot of similar programs to this that'll help you with food safety plan writing. We do ask for a 2-week advance notice when we get into the heavy audit season. You guys know how it is. Everybody's product harvests at about the same time, right? So everybody's getting their apples off the trees at the same time. Everybody's got their strawberries coming out of the field at the same time. So we get those influxes, right? So the more advanced notice we have, the better we can do it at scheduling that audit out. You have to be in operation, right? We have to be able to see that product being handled in order to audit you. There's paperwork that's involved to getting you set up with a vendor account with USDA, with New York State, agreements. So there's not a considerable amount, but a few pieces of paper that have to exchange hands to get you set up in the program. Then you reach out to the office, right? So we have two offices. We have the Western New York, Eastern New York. The split is right around that Utica line. So I end up overseeing the eastern side. So we're anywhere from the Canadian border down out through the island that we handle out of our office. All right, here we go. Applying for reimbursement. A little bit of a light sparkle, but not too much. So through the specialty crop block grant with USDA, there are monies that are available. So whenever we send out that confirmation letter saying, okay, this is when you can expect us to come on out, I always send out the application so you guys can get in line on that. That is a first come, first served basis. So the sooner you can get that in, the better. The earlier you can get your audit, the better. That is a $2,000 cap onto it right now, which typically covers the entire audit. It can also be used for consultancy work, water tests, trainings, that sort of stuff. So it's not just the audit that it's going to be specific to. So if you have additional money left with that $2,000 cap, that can be used towards it. A couple of other things to throw out there too that I threw down was there is a food safety certification for specialty crops program currently. That is going to, I don't know if I'm getting in anybody else's stuff, but that's also an assistance program that's going to be available in 2023. It was for the last half of 2022 as well. That's got a lot of money into it. So you can double dip in each of those programs, right? So you put in for our reimbursement, put in for that reimbursement. Your buyers, a lot of times they want you to have that food safety audit, right? They want to be able to do business with you if you're a reputable grower, right? So they're also going to help you with those costs as well. Hannaford, I think, kicks out a few $100. Wegmans, $300, $400, $500, something like that. So check with your buyers too, and that's something that they'll kind of advertise and get you on board with. Well, so I got no questions.
I just had just a reminder.
Yep.
That for Grown and Certified, if we're joining GAP just for Grown and Certified, we only need to have one product audit. Now, if you have a buyer like a retailer that is going to want to see that you've been audited for more than one, that's a little bit of a waste of time. But if you're simply doing this to be able to be Grown and Certified, be able to get grants, and you sell to farmers markets who don't care, at this point, they don't care, then just keep in mind you can just do one product. And that also allows you to, if you are growing baby spinach in high tunnels, early spring, the rush to get audited and get that done before everybody else is in season as well.
Do you get reimbursed back to you?
And then get reimbursed back to everybody
Exactly.
else.
So the reimbursement changed a little bit this year. It's a little bit smaller than it has been in the past, but we haven't been even come close to the cap that we have. So again, to get onto that point is the sooner the better. You stand a better chance of having that audit covered in full. Yeah.
So you talk about selling to a buyer, guys in the field. So when you come out, it's gonna be me and my son. We're gonna walk out there with you. I'm gonna give you a pail and you're gonna help us process, pick it up too, right?
No.
Because I know. So
Yeah.
Your whole thing was, I'm 20 acres, I'm selling at my farm stand and supplying a couple others, and I gotta spend $2,000 to maybe get $2,000. This is what I'm getting at. This is you and I just said it. Here we go again, and this goes back to the comment I had to you. It looks good, but now it's not so looking good.
We're not.
So when we were at the farm, at the veggie growers, same people, the lady next to us that couldn't answer my question, was that food? That was food and food safety.
Oh, yes.
So you had a lady out there that was brand new, and I do not blame her at all. She gave me a whole exemption list. I don't need anything on that sheet. Anything.
If she's giving you an exemption list, was that produce safety rule?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a frustrating part for
I'm from the
growers.
state of New York. I'm here to
Yeah.
help, Ray. Either it's pain or it's good. So help me out here. I'm looking at both sides here.
So I did have a conversation earlier. It's a business need, right? If you feel the need, I'm not trying to bash Grown Certified. I'm not going to bash anybody's business. If you see a financial need or a financial incentive to use us, to use Grown and Certified, you have to make that decision.
So I don't
We
have
are a
to use
resource.
them, I can use the other people.
Well, sure, the cost incurred will probably be comparable,
But
but
they're
again,
not the same thing. It's different.
but they're
FSMA
qualified.
is-
FSMA is different, yeah, sorry. I didn't
Help
know.
me out here, because now
So
I'm getting
so
confused.
FSMA is a totally different federal program where, I mean, Richard should probably do a better job than I can, but it's mandated. If you make over a certain amount of money, they have to come out and do an audit.
Like I said, I didn't meet any of the criteria.
Then
on
you're,
her thing.
then you're gonna be exempt from that.
So
I
keep,
can still apply for Grown and Certified.
But you're gonna have to do GAP because FSMA and
Yeah.
GAP are two different
I
things.
might as well go home. I might as well go home now and enjoy the rest of
I
my
have a
day.
question.
yeah,
Sorry.
Because that's where this is going.
So
yeah.
again, the produce started because a lot of these retailers are all, so if you're selling to, for instance, Hannaford and Wegmans, such as George said, they require these anyway, so you're doing it. But for your smaller producers, as George also said, that's really a decision as far as
Mhm.
your business plan goes.
Okay.
But that's also why Grown and Certified did expand so much, so there's lots of different ways to apply for Grown and Certified, so if produce doesn't match your business plan, maybe it's not, but maybe poultry does, and you get your chickens processed at the 5A processing plant down the road.
Or maybe you wanna start pickling your vegetables and
Which
be a
I have somebody that does it for me.
Okay,
Who's already
so-
certified. Who's
so
already certified. Who's
your-
state certified.
then your farm is a processed product ingredient producer. And you can join without being GAP certified. You can't ever market your fresh produce as being Grown certified because it's not GAP certified.
What's the
Because
what's the point?
then-
Why am I here?
Because
Help
then
me
your
out.
pickles, because now the
Oh,
vegetables
come
that you're
on.
growing, you're still eligible for the grants.
I can't survive on pickles.
But you don't need,
That's your one product though. that-
Right.
that-
Well, have your
So I can
pickles
still-
to
so I can
the
still have my sign at my
You're
store that
picking
says
up
I'm
on
Grown and
somebody else.
Certified.
For your
Well, that's
pickles.
okay.
For your pickles.
It's gonna say 4 pickles on it? That's why I'm mad. This
We
is
were,
not
let
fair.
me, because we were talking about it earlier, the marketing advantages of Grown and Certified would be limited for you if you were joining as a raw ingredient supplier. But you would still be grant eligible. So that is your, decision point.
Any products that makes you Grown and Certified eligible, makes you grant eligible. So if you put your pickles in our program, because your cucumbers, that you process down the plant, that your processor is, now they're Grown and Certified.
So I,
Guess
but I
what?
can
You're
still
in the
put that sign in
program.
my store.
Yeah.
But I'm only for my pickles though, so now
Don't tell them
we're.
it's your pickle.
we'd like it to be closer to your pickles than anything else.
Right at the front door. And they're gonna put pickles at the bottom, just black it out and say your name.
And then you call Aunt Eileen and say, I would like to apply for this grant.
You get
Well,
speeding
and I would call you.
What's that?
And
speeding
remember,
tickets?
we are in the process still of
Okay,
working
then.
out
That's
all
too
of
much money.
these scenarios for the grant program, because in this conversation, I would call you back and say, now, I thought the Grown and Certified logo tied into the product at the processor, not the raw ingredient. So you would still be grant eligible, but you wouldn't be the logo for marketing because that product they may be buying cucumbers from Jersey or wherever they grow cucumbers. And so that your processor might not be using all New York grown product. So we remember back to the Honey Man presentation that was so powerful.
Never call honey so many times in a day.
Where it's about trying to make sure that the criteria stays attached to this program so that the consumer has confidence in this brand.
So when they're-
That's for the consumer.
So when
not
a
the-
consumer walks in and sees grown in New York, grown and certified, proud participant, I'm under the assumption it's the entire store. Here, you're telling me I'm gonna say this, boy, I can get away with it by just doing my pickles. That's what you're telling
To
me.
be grant eligible, so these
Take away
grants
the grant, take away
are,
the grant.
because it's two different things. You know, it's like, we have been very hesitant to send out these signs to
Somebody like
producers
me who has a
who,
farm store with everything in there.
right, but you can, this happens all the time, and I walk into some mascot orchards, you know, and they're selling cider, they're selling all sorts of things, and they've got that sign right over their apples, which is what is in fact GAP certified, and that's what we want them to do.
Let me make
But
500 bucks.
these grants are to help the farmers. That's what that's for.
The big farmers though.
Nope. No,
Yeah, I'm saying,
No,
you
so-
get your
I gotta get a
GAP,
grant
your
to
GAP
start
can be
it.
reimbursed. And the other thing is, in Georgia, I don't know if you can speak to group GAP at all, but there are ways for smaller farms to group together and go through the GAP process as a group, and it makes the costs more approachable. And again, just reiterating, GAP is only for fresh produce. Doesn't apply to any of the other categories.
Not even pickles.
Not even.
So you can't blame me on your pickles, man.
But the thing is though, hypothetically, if you get a group of guys, he's still getting 132 an hour.
No, it's better and worse. So take a look on the USDA website, right? So there's a webinar on the group gap. There's a lot of
You're
steps to
sweating
go
awful
through.
hard.
I know. So I'm like the redheaded stepchild here, man, because I have to like bill for the stuff, right? Everybody else is like, here's some money. I know it. I feel it.
And the first thing you gotta do on your slides there is get rid of that number amount, just have it there.
Start there, we charge this.
She's not trying to shout here.
No, I'm happy
No, but I
about
understand
that.
what you're saying though, but
So
realistically, it's set up, and I mean, everyone's gonna disagree, but it's set up for the big commercial guy is what it is. It's not set up for the normal.
So I did want to speak to that because I've gone to greenhouses that are 20 by 30, growing one crop.
And they're making.
Right. Well, they had us come out for an audit, so they can get the same reimbursement, right? So I don't know what their drive is. I don't know if it's a grown and certified thing. I couldn't imagine a 20 by 30 greenhouse, selling to a Wegmans or something like
Well, I
that.
can sell to a Wegmans. I'm already selling to a couple of the small independent markets
Right.
because I'm selling to the auction.
Yep.
Me
Yep.
and every straw hat in my county,
Yep.
And then some.
and then some.
So I'm saying
And I'm
that,
selling to the others, Connecticut and Jersey, and it's all going out of state. So
yeah,
Why do you need growings?
why do I need to get? Well,
But I mean,
like
that's a
GNC
marketing
because when
decision.
my customers come to see me, they know they're getting that New York feel goodness, and I have the opportunity to get some of that freebie money I already gave once or twice, or 3 times every year.
yeah. I don't have a good answer for you other than business plan, right? It's whatever fits for you, and that's.
I hate saying this time's up. You're gonna tag in here.
Yeah.
So you guys are having a great conversation, but I do want to not go super over on time. We will have some time afterwards where you can feel free to discuss any number of these things. Just so at this point now, I'd like to have Aileen Randolph from the New York Farm Viability Institute come up and talk about some of the grant opportunities that if you do choose to become New York Grown and Certified, you will be eligible for.
Yeah, and this conversation that we were having is exactly why we are talking about this program now before it is formally rolled out. We're trying to understand what the roadblocks might be and how to make sure that the program can meet the needs of strengthening the food system, as well as kind of the individual needs of the producers. So I'm going off script here, and my new boss, Jessica, over there in the corner, hasn't heard me say
this before.
But I've been nodding so far.
So this is Aileen talking now. This train is coming on food safety. The gap, yes, it's much more urgent for a large scale producer, but consumers care about local product. You can look at all sorts of consumer trend research that says the different reasons why they buy local products. Some is they believe in supporting the local economy. Some is food safety. Nobody likes to go to Wegmans when they've had yet another lettuce recall from Yuma, Arizona, because that adjacent field is using brown water and it got into the romaine lettuce again. I mean, you walk into Wegmans and that shelf is empty, and it's not because all of a sudden Americans are eating their vegetables. So,
but that's the problem. Everything's bigger. It's supposed to be better.
Okay, but you can either decide that there is going to be some pain in getting GAP certified if you are a produce person, but you feel that you can strategically figure out how to make this work for your business, like my honeyman friend over here. I loved your presentation. Or you can say, it's not for me. Eileen's really good at what she does, so the grant program is going to be competitive. So somebody else will get the money. That is your decision to make. But the program is structured the way the program is structured because New York State is doing some good things for the eaters of New York. They are trying to build a strong regional food system that has a food safety verification built into it. And they are trying to help ensure that farmers are going on record about their environmental management. So that AEM plan, that's all you're doing is going on record. You're not making any big commitment about the 10 things that maybe you should be thinking about changing. Because I promise you, we've got a farm. I know the 10 things I should be changing. But these are all your decisions to make. But I look at it and I think you're either going to get ahead and somebody's going to get this money, or you're going to choose to do something else. So that's the end of my soapbox. And I hope these slides are big enough to see from the back. That says Program Administrator RFP Broad Program Guidelines. So where we are right now is that Farm Viability is a small nonprofit. We have, since 2005, we have run a research and education program that identifies work that will create and share knowledge to improve the economic viability of New York's farms. So that's what we have been about for the last 15 years. Our board of directors is all farmers, and the reviewers for those proposals are all farmers. Last summer, we responded to an RFP that was part of the consolidated funding application, which is part of the state's regional economic development councils, another grant opportunity area. But we responded to it and we said, we want to be your program administrator for this grown and certified program, because Eileen's always been a little bit wacky in her belief of it. And that program, that RFP, the request for proposals that Farm Viability was announced as the administrator for, it told us what the program structure was. It told us who was eligible, grant size, cost, and priorities. So eligibility, producer up to the retail door, distributors, co-ops, processors, anyone that can become grown and certified who is selling food for humans is going to be an eligible entity for this piece. And oh, by the way, if you're part of that large agro ecosystem that we should all be appreciative of, the people who do nothing but try and support New York farmers and their businesses, if you're a nonprofit working with one of those, you're eligible to work with them and apply as well. This is the key part. Applications from current grown and certified participants or businesses actively in the process of becoming grown and certified will be prioritized. So an application will be more competitive if you can say, I have my gap audit scheduled, or I am already grown and certified, whatever it is, based on your commodity. But those applications, we're working out all our criteria, scoring and weighting. This is going to be objective, but that matters. I apologize. This is going to be way too small for y'all to see. Eligible projects and priorities, 2 funding streams, A and B. Capital projects, and then research and development projects that will aid in the development of new products to be marketed under New York State grown and certified. There is a flyer on the tables in front of you that has all this detail in it. All the projects, this is about implementing new and innovative practices or approaches to meet industry needs and consumer demand, direct and timely benefit to New York ag industry and significance to the region served. And then these are important. These are the priority areas. And again, this is all listed in that flyer that was in your folder. Production, automation, and labor efficiency. New York State understands that there is a lot of new technology out there that if farms could afford to put it into place would be really valuable and could help increase the amount of local food that was on tables. Distribution capacity enhancement, processing and packaging, food safety, environmental sustainability directly related to New York State grown and certified participation, and new product development targeting consumer demand. So that's a really broad list of, if you need to make a change and take a next step with your business in one of those areas, grown and certified grants will be competitive, but will be able to help. Okay. Why not? All right. I'm like, take a second. Okay. Again, this came from the RFP. The 10 are and this is on your flyer. So the 10 regional economic development councils were organized into 4 groups. The money flows within those 4 groups. That the research and product development is $200,000 per group. Those grants can be between $10,000 to $50,000. It will be a 10% match requirement. The second pool of money is a total of $5 million, and it's 1 to 1.5 per region for infrastructure and technology. Those funding requests will be between $20,000 to $250,000. So big ideas can work here. Sure.
So on the lower limits on that, I think it was 10 and 20,000. If there's residual monies, will they go? How tightly wedded are you to that?
To the bottom level?
Yes.
Wedded.
Mine was less than that.
This is the new program, and those are the rules. We may end up with like 2 RFPs so that a $20,000 project doesn't compete against a $250,000 project, but we're not building a system for under the 20,000. So those were rules that came to us in the RFP that we responded to. And so this is how they grouped those regional economic development councils and the money that's allocated for each of them. And again, that is in the flyer too. Big range or wide. You don't see grant programs that will pay for this kind of stuff very often. Machinery and equipment, construction, acquisition of buildings, architectural and engineering costs. I get really excited down here with the consultants and technical service providers, because that's where, if you want to do something as a community or a region, the project would be able to have someone staff it on a paid basis. So the application, would be a grant application, so it would be on spec. But if it required someone to run the project, and they have the skills to do that, so whether it's an extension person, whether it's from a nonprofit, wherever they could, it could be a private industry consultant. So you can think about ways to work collaboratively with your neighbors. So things like that group gap certification could be something that would fit in well here. Research and development projects, that's really the food science people or marketing people is what's in those projects.
Before you go ahead, you were talking about a community grant. I've been on that. I've been a part of those. Who takes the lead? Say if I do it, I'm gonna take the lead. I'm grabbing everybody in this room and I'm the lead and I get it and then I gotta facilitate out. Or does everybody get a chunk of that and I have to break it all down?
That is the strategy of your application and your proposal.
That's how we work.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the purchase would need to go to an eligible entity. So whether it was a building or, the value of whatever the thing being bought, or whether it's a brand that's going to be developed for Schoharie or whatever, the value has to accrue to the grant applicant. So that could either be something that is formed for this, or or you can say, this is how it's going to go out. I mean,
everybody grows strawberries. We're going to buy 10 of the solar powered strawberry pickers, and this is how we're going to do it. Same thing. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, so
I'm the lead, and then I bring on 9 others.
But you could hire on a consultant to be the lead.
They're too expensive.
But it'd be covered within the eligible cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or you could, if there's somebody who supports agriculture in your region, they could potentially be the applicant. But the value of the goods should be going to someone who will commit to being grown and certified. So, I mean, that because it's still the grown and certified eligibility.
So to do it, them other 9 have to be GNC certified.
I would believe so.
Or a retail partner, as we consider,
Or in the process of, right? That's why we're doing these workshops.
Yeah. I mean, but
And can I add quick too?
Sure.
Heather can add to this too, but we're with Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. We're a nonprofit, and sometimes the work we do is where we'll administer a grant. So like we're doing the boring paperwork, and you can actually do the stuff. So Heather, I don't know if you want to give an elevator speech or when we're up next, but they were talking about collaborating on grants and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we actually, at MVEDD, we're actually collaborating with City of Utica, New York, Central New York Conservancy, Tree Conservancy, and the Utica Rotary, where MVEDD was the applicant for DEC tree grant, but so we're going to administer it, but we're not actually running it. The Conservancy, the Rotary Club, and the City of Utica will actually be the recipients of the tree and the money to purchase the trees and to do all of that. But we are going to administer it. So we're going to do all of the paperwork for them. We're going to be purchasing the trees, all of that, and then we'll get the reimbursement back. So it sounds like that's what you're kind of asking. So one person can be the lead, they can be the administrator on it, but we're not the only recipient. We're not actually the ones truly benefiting from the grant, if that makes sense.
All right, this just hit me. I guess we're all over the place, so we got time. You can answer, maybe you. All right, so me and everybody in this room.
Jessica will answer.
Well, I still want to be GNC in the room. But they're not, they can't be.
We can't be, no.
But they're a nonprofit. A nonprofit was an eligible entity.
But they don't have to be GNC if they're not for profit. So if I go to you and say, all right, can you write a grant through GNC to get 10 businesses, 5 in Montgomery, 5 in Schoharie, C&G certified? And then that money would help me create the food safety to hire him to do it, and same thing with everybody else in the room. That's lunches.
If there was a grant available.
There is, it's right there.
Can you do that for this grant? I guess is the
you can, and what we're going to need to do is to have conversations within those regional groups to find out if they are interested. The state has had grants available for food safety to encourage participation in GNC to do exactly what you just said for several years. Those grants have sunsetted. The funds have been expended. These dollars have food safety in it, but they also have all the other stuff. Sure.
How would have I found out about that?
I wasn't administering it.
Well,
I
that's
can't
what I'm
answer
saying. I
that.
would have never known about that grant. How do I know about that grant? I'm out in the field doing what he's asking me to do.
Well, and actually I can push back on that a little bit. I spend a lot of time at trade shows, and that Grown and Certified table is at every trade show that the ag industry holds in the state of New York.
I had a question. We walked by. I want to know about it.
Okay.
I said, yes, I'm going to the seminar and I'm getting the knowledge.
Okay. Well, and that
I
and
put my money where my mouth
and
is.
so if you had been in a prior year when those funds were available, I would expect that if you had stopped at a trade show booth.
She said that was you can apply.
Yep.
And get that money.
I know that there have been articles on Morning Ag Clips.
I don't get that.
It's free.
So not an ag person, not an ag organization. We actually found out about the previous administrators of this directly from the New York State Grown and Certified website. And it wasn't buried anyplace. It said, hey, we have grants available. Click here to see who is administering it.
Funding opportunities.
I did that once and the girl said, oh, we can give you the email. No clue.
But
nobody still knows who's running the grant.
That's also part of the reason why this is all happening. So the reason why we're having this workshop is because we, as all stakeholders, knew this grant was coming out, knew these opportunities are there. And it's, you know, the boots on the ground, it's hard to get all that information out to. But like, that's why we're doing this regional approach where we're like, all right, everyone in the surrounding county come here. So like, this is step one. And in the future, as long as like this is well received and there's other things we can provide, like, you know, there's tons of opportunities, but it, you know, you buried in information.
Well, and I mean, the good news about this is that the dollars that we've talked about that are going into this program, those are year one dollars. It is anticipated that the state is going to continue to fund it for an additional 4 years. So, and we are talking about this program now because I think the worst thing that an RFP can do, a request for proposal, is to take people by surprise. So we are trying to let folks know, and copy is going to be added to my website in the next 2 weeks, the Farm Viability website. There's going to be a form to register for news about when the RFP is out. But what we are telling everybody is, you know, you can get ready for this now by having your financials in order, making sure you know what your business plan is, thinking about whether you want to work with other people, and starting that Grown and Certified process, because that is why the legislature put this money into a grant program. They want to strengthen the food system by increasing participation in Grown and Certified. And, you know, I can't argue with them. Research and product development grants, there's still a lot of work to be done for us to develop this program. But basically, these are those food science grants. So, you know, you need somebody to help you figure out how to turn your milk into cheese or your kale into kale chips, whatever, you know, whatever your idea is. These are funds that will help you with that. With the in the food science world, there's a, you know, there's a list of folks within or organizations within the state that really know how to do this. But the research and product development would also support marketing and branding kind of work. We are working out what our overall process is going to be on it. 10 to 50,000, still that 10% match. Smaller scale dollars, 200,000 per regional group. This is what I was just telling you, that on the capital projects, on those infrastructure and technology grants, you know, I'm out here even though I don't have every detail buttoned down, because I feel like we know enough that you can start thinking about, if grown and certified is for you, then how to get ready to make sure that you are competitive once this program can hit the market. So, you know, I need your feedback and welcome all your comments so that I know what pitfalls to avoid, and that I know in my materials to market this program that we are very candid about who it's going to best, because not everything is going to work for everybody. But if it works for you, it's going to work really well. So I already had a slide for if this conversation hadn't started to occur, to say, you know, not just the grant, you know, so there's the grants program, and let me also make it really clear that New York State is kind of, you know, there's the whole slow food movement, and that you eat what's in season and you patiently wait for all of that. Well, grant programs are kind of the slow money world and the equivalent of it. So we are going to be designing the application in partnership with lenders, so that if you get a grant, you should be able to qualify for an operating loan for that 90% free money, so that your costs are carried and that you can patiently wait for your slow money process. So, and you will be responsible for that interest payment. So 10% plus interest. And that's, again, just kind of the rules for 90% free money, and a stronger food system.
I'm not sure which direction this is.
Come on, Joseph.
Is the low, again, I'm going back to that lower cap, is that a restriction by your RFP with the New York Farm Viability, or will there be micro grants available like through Cornell Cooperative Extension again?
20,000 is the minimum for this grant.
For this grant, but I'm just saying,
Oh,
if we have
like
a 4-year,
our
will they be coming out again sometime with grants, or are we just saying, nope, no more grants under 20,000?
Oh, no. This first year, we just to make it easier to administer.
Understood.
In many ways, what we learned, we said, let's keep it starting at 20. If we find that next year or 2 years from now, maybe when we have a little bit more time to learn how this has gone, we find there were a lot of farms that felt like they were left out because they had projects under that, maybe then we do start it a little bit lower. You know, in the meantime.
But your mini grant program
is really a marketing.
It's
really marketing. So that doesn't cover equipment.
And
unless it's a label application machine.
I think a lot of these grants, like a lot of I know that grants have been around forever, but a lot of this program is sort of still in its infancy. So a lot of these grants are new. So we haven't really experienced the full gamut.
Yeah, I mean,
we're speaking correct. You know,
we also
out, but
we also started with produce for the first full year, and then there was dairy, and then so really we are still building. I mean, it is, and we're adding animal fiber and plant fiber right now. You know, every time I think, okay, that's.
But not to this program. This one's only food. But, you know, so this is really what this one is, you know, this one, production automation and labor efficiency. So if you were doing anything that could use, and I try and think of it as, when does product start in all the different commodities? Because these grants are going to be about product. That climate resilient farming program is getting a big wave of cash into it, and it will be about growing before it becomes product or soil health. You saw that earlier. So I would really make sure you take another look at that program too, as it's coming out. But so production automation and labor efficiency. Through Farm Viability, we've been funding work in all these new technologies that are coming to market that we want to see farmers start to use, because we know labor costs are going up, we know all these other things, and we know we want a strong food system, we being the state. So, for example, one way we could add to this RFP, so this is, I'm using y'all as my focus group, would be to have the apple guy at Cornell, the grape guy, you know, all the different kind of commodity areas help me with the RFP by saying, these are the 5 new tools that are out there in the marketplace. These mechanical harvesters for cider apples, you know, this one, or these kind are good for 2 acres, these kind are good for 20 acres. Would having information like that organized by, you know, what you grow, or in vegetable, and vegetables far too complicated, but less so than dairy. But in vegetable, we would look at small farm tools, as well as like larger crop specific. Would it be helpful to you to see kind of ideas like that that might be covered under this production automation? I mean, or do you feel like you keep up with what's coming out there on the market and you would come up with those ideas on your own?
I think most of the speak for me, but it goes back to my earlier comment when I cut you in half in the middle. If I don't know what's available, not the equipment, the monies, the program, that's what I need. I can keep up in technology and go to trade shows. We did. There was stuff there, you know, and they're doing a good job. But again, I'm always speaking.
You're going to be. I heard you talking about Farm Bureau earlier, and so you're going to be happy to hear that I spent an hour on the phone yesterday. I've got a more detailed version of this presentation, but talking to Farm Bureau about how can we collaborate on this to make sure that all, you know, it's like any of the states' ag membership organizations should be falling all over themselves to get the word out to their members about this, because this is.
But again, it goes back to the state of New York. I'm here to help, and she left to go from soil and water. I don't want you on my property. It goes back to that. And you brought up the same thing earlier. The younger, I'm going to say I'm 40, so the younger group is more accustomed to what we're doing today and seeing what's available. It's going to be a hard push. I sold ag equipment for 22 years.
The state has never done a 90-10 grant before.
This is a huge deal. This
This
is
is,
huge.
but the program that you were fussing about, not knowing about, was a 1-to-1 match. You know, so and the people who did know about it fussed about it being a 1-to-1 match. I think that we all need to take a moment and really think about how other states don't even have a grown and certified program, let alone a grown and certified grant program. And, you know, let's commit to how we can make it better together, because that's really what it's going to come down to. And so I'm telling you, I have had more than 50 individual meetings with people in what I call the ag ecosystem. So folks whose mission of their organization or whose role is to help their membership or farmers in their geographic region succeed. And I'm saying, hey, do you want to be on the advisory group? Do you have names for me of who would be good on the regional review committees? Because I need to find people who aren't going to be submitting applications. and we're at Farm Viability, we're used to having the farmer reviewers. And all of you are welcome to join my farmer review panels for our research proposal evaluation. But, you know, so I'm telling you that we are really taking it seriously, that mandate to reach people. But you're going to have to decide, is Grown Certified for you? Does it align with your business interests? That's really your decision to make. And your business interest might be being eligible for a grant program that is going to be competitive, because I am a competitive person. and so I want to see, I want to feel like I did a good job and made this program competitive. And I want to make sure that we have ideas and proposals and applications from businesses that really want to see a strong regional food system. And I want to make sure that the folks that are going to be on the advisory group and on those regional review teams have a real hard time choosing, because there are so many good applications. And by the way, isn't it great that we're going to have more funding coming into it next year, so folks can easily reapply? But I can leave it there. Morning Ag Clips is where I will be putting out press releases. I will also be making sure all of the ag membership organizations and the folks that I have met with know when that content goes out. So I'm gonna put something on Morning Ag Clips that says, hey, go to the Farm Viability website to fill out the form to be notified when the RFP is available. I am hoping that is going to be in fourth quarter of this year, because we want it to be a less busy season for the agricultural community. So that is kind of what it all looks like. My name is on the Farm Viability website, nyfvi.org. You can email me directly. Tell me what you think.
Thanks, Aileen.
Sorry, I went over my allocation.
No, that's all right. Time means nothing anymore. So,
well, no, apparently
It is
means
when you got
what?
someone come serve.
$132 an hour.
not me. So we do have one more speaker, Amanda, who has some information on some other incentives and energy programs that are available to farmers such as yourselves. And so if Amanda would like to take over at this point, just real quick before she does, we do have a little bit of time after the program. So I know a lot of you have some stuff on your mind that you'd like to talk about. If we can kind of hammer it home here, and then we have some time to talk. So.
Yes, and I went back to that one, so just
get to
skip out or do whatever you need.
Perfect. I think I keep getting to go further.
You're young
Okay.
enough, you can find it.
Yes, see, we got this. So this is a little bit agricultural program incentives. It's a big collaborate. I'm from Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. I work on a NYSERDA program, helping local governments mostly, but we collaborate on a bunch of different things. So we have like different energy efficiency type programs that we can help with, amongst other things. So here is a hyperlinked list of agricultural programs for your leisurely pleasure, because I believe we're going to be sending these slides out. But a couple of the big ones you have handouts for, and I have slides on. So one of the big things is USDA Rural Energy for America program. Rural small businesses and agricultural producers are eligible for grants of up to 40% of eligible cost, as well as loan guarantees. So anything renewable energy, energy efficiency, it can include things as far as like roofs, insulation, windows, anything like that. So as we kind of talk about all these possibilities for your business, for whatnot, thinking of all these programs that are available and kind of what you can put into it or what your farm needs, this might be a good thing to think about if you're going to be doing like a roofing improvement, or if you need to do any insulation. Just knowing that this is out there. Applications for this one are due March 31st, but I believe they're going to have it open up again. So if you're in National Grid territory, which most of
Mohawk Valley is pretty much. You can apply for the Residential Agricultural Discount Program. NYSEG also has one, but we have the application right in your little packets there. There's a discount that is given just based on the number of participants, the amount of electric used that year. You have to have your application in annually by July 1st to start receiving the discount in September of each year. But if your home is on the same property as your farm, this is definitely something to get into. No one likes paying their utility bill. So if you can reduce that with like an easy enough, you'll see it's front and back. It's nothing crazy. And if you need help with that, we can help you as well.
I just want to say, I've been on it for a long time. What you have to remember to tell people is that you have to renew it every single year.
Yep.
And that you need your farm tax form.
Yep. And so that's one of the things you what?
Schedule.
Yep. So they have like their requirements and stuff, but especially as you get into some of these programs, just making sure you always have those identifying numbers, and then but we'll keep reminding you. But yes, definitely apply to it annually. So NYSERDA also has an agricultural energy audit program. It's no cost, and it can either be comprehensive, so they'll just look at the whole shebang, or it can be targeted on a specific process. So this is a free program offered by NYSERDA as long as you are in National Grid or NYSEG. It's not eligible for like if you're on municipal electric supply. But they'll come out, and as you're thinking of applying to these different grant opportunities and whatnot, this is just a great arsenal of information. They can also point you to other like NYSERDA grants for any recommendations they have. But at the end of the day, you'll have someone come out to your farm or business for no cost. They'll go over everything, and then they'll be able to give you a detailed report about what you can improve, what needs to be improved, and then you'll be able to kind of use that as you're looking at other opportunities as well. It can either be a honey-do list as you go about your things by yourself, or anything that you can use rebates, incentives, tax credits for. So there's also a National Grid agribusiness program. So there's electric incentives that are available for certain measures, plate coolers, heat recovery units for hot water, refrigeration compressors, chillers, LED lights. There's a bunch of different incentives, especially available through National Grid. So if you're going to do anything at your property that involves energy, I recommend reaching out to maybe one of us so that we can be like, oh, okay, here's this opportunity, or make sure you check if you're eligible for this. Each program has its own set of criteria, but us at MVEDD as well as CCE Oneida, we're working on some NYSERDA programs where we give no cost technical assistance. So like has been mentioned, there's a lot of stuff out there. So we're here to kind of guide you and let you know based on your project what some of the opportunities are. National Grid also has a productivity grant that's basically for any installation of energy efficiency, renewable energy, productivity improvements, anything like that. And the grant amounts are determined based on the size of the capital investment. And so basically the breakdown goes under 25,000, the funding won't exceed 5,000, and then it kind of just fluctuates from there. But again, this is something that if you're going to be doing a project or you're thinking about a project, at least reach out, see if the National Grid grant could be good for you. National Grid also has commercial kitchen rebates. So if you have either like a restaurant side or a commercial kitchen or anything like that, if you're looking at purchasing a fryer, a steamer, anything like that, they have instant rebates that are available, as well as, I think this list is great because it shows the estimated lifetime savings. So one thing you're doing is paying your utility bill every month. So if the more things you produce, the more you're using like a fryer or something like that, the more your operational cost goes up. And the more utility prices go up, the more your operational cost goes up. So by doing purchases like this, where you're getting an energy efficiency product, you're lowering your operating cost as well as getting incentives. So they're out there. There's certain dealers that you can go through, but if you need help with that, or if that's applicable to you, you feel free to reach out. There's also a food pantry donation tax credit. So as we're working more and more in the region, we connect with food pantries and other organizations, you know, pretty much every day. All these things are interconnected. So if
you're already donating and not getting the tax credit, or if you're interested in donating, I believe we have some information on it on the table. But you can get a tax credit not to exceed $5,000 per year. But still, if you're already doing it and not getting credit for it, it's just another way of getting some of your taxes back. So another thing I am really fond of is heat pumps. So New York State is really looking to reduce our heating load. So, and especially some more rural areas, you might not have access to natural gas or something like that. So you might rely heavily on oil, propane, electric resistance heat. So that's where heat pumps can really be a great option. There's one right ahead of you guys. So that's actually a heat pump that heats and cools in here. So there's great incentives right now, as well as tax credits. They're very efficient and they're very versatile in their installation. So like you were talking about with heating your little stand. So a heat pump might be a good option just to be able to heat and cool for those shoulder seasons, a certain room or where you're operating. They use less electric than electric resistance heat. So versus an electric space heater, they're going to be like a third of the cost to operate. So that's where if you have any issues with heating or cooling, either your home, your business, or any part of it, they might be a good option for you to look at. And there's great incentives and tax credits right now. So they provide versatile heating and cooling, a lot of fun stuff about them. They use refrigerant technology, so it's all pretty tested and true. That's Indiana Jones in the refrigerator, just because. So there's also business heat pump incentives where also if you're looking at something maybe more like geothermal, if you have like a bigger heating capacity that you need to offset. So there's different tax credits available. There's New York State Clean Heat, and you can talk to your accountant to see kind of what you would be eligible for. So some additional energy efficiency products, LED lighting, insulation and air sealing. And the National Grid also has a marketplace where they kind of have different products like power strip savers, smart thermostats, anything like that. But if you're looking to convert to LED lights, there's a lot of incentives out there. They also have a lot of benefits like battery backup and different like photo sensors and things like that. So by switching to different lights, you'll be able to not only save energy, but there's a lot of different applications you can go through. So if you have like a remote building where the power goes out, you know, more times a year than you want, you can actually get lights with battery backup built in, so that you don't have to fumble with a bunch of stuff when the power goes out. Same insulation and air sealing is another great option. There's a lot of programs and tax incentives available to cover some of the costs, but it's also something that you could do it yourself and get tax credits for depending on what the application is. For residents, there's free energy audits as well as for your farm and business. So there's pretty much energy audits for any property you may have. And from there, it just gives you a to-do list. So that'll help you with your air sealing and insulation. USDA also has a single family housing repair and loans and grants. So if you're living in a more rural area and you have any home improvements that need to be made, the USDA can also help you with that. And they have different loan and grant funds. So if you're a business that maybe isn't agricultural producer per se, maybe you're just more like a storefront or a co-op or something, you can still go through a Green Jobs, Green New York Energy study for your building. It's pretty affordable. If you have 10 full-time employees or less, it's $100. And that's available for nonprofits as well as small commercial. Another thing that there are a ton of incentives for right now is EV charging stations. They're really trying to get the network for electric vehicles up and at it. EV charging stations work in a couple different ways as far as like benefiting small businesses. So they are often an attraction to different clientele. So being able to see on the map that there's an EV charger that's available sometimes gives, you know, more market visibility, things like that. But right now, National Grid offers incentives up to 100% on the infrastructure side of installing a charging station. So if you were to install a charging station at your business, you'd be able to get all the infrastructure, like say you need, you know, a service upgrade, a panel upgrade, all that stuff put in for the EV charger. You could get 100% reimbursement of that as long as it's publicly available and whatnot. And then there's also a federal tax credit of 30% up to $30,000, and then a New York State tax credit. So it's just one of those things that you might not need it at your business per se. You may not be plugging in your tractor there, but it gives you more, visibility, marketing visibility. And if you need an infrastructure update at your property anyway, it might be a good time to think about incorporating that. So National Grid has some LED lighting programs that are available. Just kind of depends on which pathway you want to go through. And so here's some more business programs and incentives. So the first slide was more like agricultural programs, and this is just any generic business, which also kind of overlaps with some of the agricultural stuff. And then these are for National Grid. They have a ton of incentives available, whether it's lighting, controls and thermostats, just a bunch of different great programs out there. So again, before you do anything energy wise, at least give us a call, see if there's anything that you might be eligible for. Some more for NYSERDA. These are all hyperlinked. That's why they're all in here. And then here's my contact information, then Heather's as well. We figured we were going to be last, so we wanted to be able to speed through everything. But that's our information. And then if you need any help with your situation, we can kind of go project by project. And I think that's it. Where'd Nick go? There he is.
I thought I scared you.
No, you're good.
Wow.
All right, so that in a nutshell is a lot of different things. Like I said, we do have some time afterwards here that we can kind of get together and discuss some more things in depth. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It was touched on a little bit earlier in some of the discussions, but this is like the first one of these that's happened, I think. So, we're really trying to get the message out there in a multitude of different ways. I want to thank everybody who spoke today. I know you guys put in a lot of effort in getting everything together and getting here and devoting an entire day to this project, essentially. I also want to thank SEEC for having us and having a space to have this great event. And then, of course, Sam, Amanda, and Heather, who have co-planned this with me since the beginning. And then just some notes. We will be sending out a follow-up email that'll have all of the slides from today. It'll have a link to the recording from today. So if there's something you want to go back and hear again, or if there's someone who you think would benefit from hearing some of this information, you can definitely send them that way. We will also be asking for feedback again, since this was one of the first of this type of event.
Let's be real, I think it is the first.
Okay, it's the first. Yeah. We did it. So obviously there's some things that maybe we could improve on as we try to recreate this other places. So we definitely are interested in hearing what the successes were and where some improvement can be made. With that, there's a whole table full of handouts. If anybody needs to go over the applications for national, or yeah, Amanda's got me on National Grid. For New York Grown and Certified are up here. There are some handouts, various handouts about enrollment sheets, different stuff. Come up and take a look. If nothing else, steal a notepad and a pen. But with that, thank you for coming. And it's been a really great, enlightening program for me, and I appreciate it.